I didn't respond because I didn't see it.
All right, everyone, let's get started.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming. This is our June EPS meeting. We have some new faces in the audience, so that's very awesome. I'm glad everyone's here. So I'll just, again, kind of remind everyone, it is a committee meeting and we have a lengthy agenda tonight. We're going to talk about advanced placement French materials, end of year data review, our 6th grade course for digital literacy, a new curriculum warehouse, and a dual enrollment agreement, as well as a discussion about the new upcoming POM schedule. And so kind of different from the board meetings where we do public comment at the end. What we typically do is we have our presentations, we ask our questions, and then I'll go to the audience to see if you have any questions. If you do, please tell us your name and your township because we do take minutes. Okay. All right. So we're going to start with the advanced placement French materials.
Sure. So Madame Nyman is here, our esteemed French teacher for the middle school and high school, about some updates with the AP program.
Hey, so thank you. So since I've been here for the last 35 years, there have been 2 major changes in the AP exam for world languages. The 2012 exam was the first change, and it changed the exam from a very grammar-oriented kind of rote memorization exam into a more communicative exam. And it focused on 50% of the exam was a multiple choice. This is our current exam I'm talking about. 50% of it is multiple choice with reading and listening. The other 50% is free response with a 15-minute email response, a 55-minute essay, 3-source essay response, 2-minute conversation, and 2-minute pulse comparison speaking. It is now changing in 2026-2027 school year, and it is redesigned to align all the languages kind of on the same plane. First big change is that it's going to be entirely online, entirely digital, and entirely on Blue Book. I think ours is the last exam that still had a written portion, handwritten portion. It also has some multiple choice changes. It's going to be moved to the end of the exam. It's going to streamline the questions to 55 as opposed to 65. But it'll still be based 50% of the exam will still be based on the multiple choice. The exam will still include a 15%, formerly 12.5% essay portion. And there will be no more email, conversation, or cultural comparison portion. That is going to be replaced by a multi-phase research project presentation with questions and answers. And the project components will include a 3-minute spoken presentation, which will be 20% of their overall score, with 4 pre-recorded questions, which will be 15% of their score. And students will now be able to bring their outline of their project to the exam. And in fact, it has to be submitted ahead of time to College Board by April 30th. And so in this way, they're tested more on not speaking at the moment, what they can say at the moment, but rather how well they've prepared and organized and kind of internalized what they've researched. The course project will be drawn, they've already announced it, will be on art and creativity with focus on music as a lens for exploring cultural products, practices, and perspectives. The course project packet will be released by College Board in January, and the overall length of the exam will be shortened by an hour, which will thrill the students and the proctors as well, because I think our exam was the longest for 3.5 hours. And so in order to meet the needs of some of these big changes in the AP exam, I'm requesting a new version of our textbook. We currently have this textbook, but it's a 2016 version. And when it was released, we did not get a workbook. They did not have a workbook. The newly aligned textbook, which is not going to be released until 2027, so too late for this coming school year, will have a workbook that's released earlier in 2026 in October. So I think this will be helpful as a kind of stopgap measure to prepare our students for next year. And I'm requesting 1 soft cover text or workbook with 15 online 1-year subscriptions to meet the needs of these current students enrolled. And then when the textbook is released in 2027, I'm going to request 15 hard copy versions of that book, plus the workbook that comes along with a 6-year online subscription. And I think that's the most cost-effective way to manage that.
Mm-hmm.
I've included in there, there's all the price listings and textbook itself.
And we would be able to cover next year's cost for the workbooks through the Ready
It'll
to
be-
Learn block grant.
Right, and so I
Okay, right.
forgot to say the prices. So for next year, the cost is $819 for that one soft cover plus the online subscriptions. And then the following year will be $4,000 for 15 hard copy plus the workbooks.
Did you say that, about the project? Is everybody have the same project topic?
Yes.
Oh,
which is
interesting.
Really interesting
Yeah.
and new because prior to this, every language would have a different topic for their conversation, for their email. It was always kind of, well, Spanish was easier or French was easier.
Yeah.
So now it's on the same exact plane and the kids get to prepare ahead of time, which is kind of interesting to see how that.
And so
plays out.
all the language, so is AP Spanish doing this structure also?
So currently AP Spanish is not running
Okay,
this
okay.
coming year.
Got
So
So we may need to have materials there too.
Eventually for the
Okay,
year after.
great. Any other questions from the group?
How many students? Are you looking at 15?
So I'm saying 15 because we have 15 enrolled for the next year, but of course, once the enrollment comes out, luckily we'll have a little bit of time to figure that out and that could decrease. So the maximum would be 15,
And it's just one section.
one section. And it would start in January. So we would have time to be able to see how many we'd actually have to order.
Okay.
Yeah, very supportive. It's a little bit of a shame they got rid of the oral portion
Well,
because
so-
I think other countries have that in fluency exams.
Are
that-
they gonna do it virtually though? Is that
So,
like,
no,
no?
it's
Okay.
pre-planned questions. They're
Oh,
already
that is
pre-done.
interesting.
We won't see the questions.
Yeah,
Their speaking portion will be on the research. So they'll kind
Mm.
of prepare that research and then present on that research. And they'll have an outline that they could take in with them. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. It's
Yeah.
a different, I
That is
mean, we've
interesting.
had this exam for so long,
yeah.
that we're so used to that. It's going to be
Mhm.
interesting to see how it changes.
What's the requirement to get into the class?
AP. So they have to go through all the levels 1 through 4.
1 through 4.
And
Okay.
be successful in those levels. And then-
Okay.
I'm not gonna, I have 4 kids that are near fluent in French, so I'm not gonna complain. What is, since we, are phasing out German, do we know what the breakdown is now between Spanish and French? Is it equal or?
Well, for next year at the middle school, it is equal. Those sections, yeah.
Questions from the audience?
Yeah, hi, Drew Williams, Rich, and you were my German teacher in middle school.
So you have to talk in German
I
now.
teach,
Did you say I
I teach AP Environmental Science in New Jersey, and I didn't know that we have requirements that every so many years we have to have new textbook as part of the audit. Do they have the same requirements in Pennsylvania, do we know?
We didn't know, as far as I'm aware. We have to submit a new, request to teach. We have to put a new syllabus together
Okay.
that matches this course.
We had my course, we had a big shift and they changed everything around. We had an old textbook for 1 year and then got to the new one that was redone, the new sequence. It's a huge game changer. It's like, makes it so much easier. The kids love it. Instead of like just trying to piecemeal everything. And we've been using it for 7 years now. It's been- yeah, So.
All right. Any other questions? All right, great. Will this be on the board agenda?
Yes.
Okay, for approval. Great. Everybody good with that? Okay, great. All right. Thank you. And thank you for your 35 years.
Yeah. Really.
Kann ich meinen Bleistift spitzen? That's what I like. And I sharpen my pencil. That's see. All right, end of year data review.
All right. Thanks so much. So there was a request of the committee to provide an update for the data that we have currently at this end of this year. As we know, our state data from PSSA and Keystone exams will not be available to us until the fall. And we also know, as I reminded the group last month, that our science data will not be available till later in the fall, which will then push back our building scores and the Future Ready Index until December, allegedly. So we'll see.
Yeah.
So with that said, turn this on. So as we know, this year, we had some really awesome implementations of new programming. Again, and I mentioned this earlier today in another meeting with our special ed department, but as we know, you can give the very best teacher the worst program and their students are going to learn and grow. You can give the worst teacher the best program and it's not going to work, right? So it's about the person, not the program. However, having these programs in place has been very helpful to provide a structure for our students. And these have been implementations that have occurred this year through K-8. So as we can see here on this chart, we all know that Amplify, CKLA at the elementary level, we implemented this year, K through 5. Everyday Math, we've had Everyday Math in the district for decades. Our students respond well to it. In fact, as you recall from our data presentation, for at least the last 2 years, our elementary school scores have been the highest of our cohort group when it comes to PSSA testing, and our teachers are very familiar with this teaching format. So to conclude that program and to finish that spiral, we included the 6th grade version, and we also thought doing so would help that transition from elementary to middle school with some academic familiarity. And then we also introduced K-6 to go along with Everyday Math, a supplemental online program called ALEX, where the students have challenges and they go on and they get to practice and try to level up and move up through the grade levels. I can share that our elementary friends are ecstatic about it, and they are competing with one another and in classes, and there are goals and there are challenges, and they're very excited. In fact, a number of students were kind of upset with us that we're not having to do it over the summer, because our philosophy is screens down, let's enjoy the summer and be with our families. But nonetheless, Alex has come across fairly well. Our students have enjoyed it, and our teachers are using it with fidelity for the few minutes that they have over the course of the week. And then finally, Carnegie Learning is our math program that we've implemented for grades 7 and 8, which has been really great as well. In its program, it has all of those similar components where there are opportunities for intervention, for enrichment. Teachers have more materials than they've had before, which they appreciate. And so we're utilizing these programs with fidelity this year, and we'll be working on what those planned course statements look like going forward, and how far do we get in each of those units, those grade levels, and making sure that we've hit those standards. So with that as context, we're going to look at MAP data. So MAP is measures of academic progress. We have our students participate in grades 2 through 8 3 times a year, beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of the year. And again, that is a normative assessment in which millions of students actually worldwide participate. And it is a norm referenced test to kind of compare students and grade levels and districts with others from throughout really the United States and Canada, but other places as well. So this year there was a goal that was provided by the board in which, because knowing that there is something called implementation dip, there's also an implementation theory. And in that theory, we did a lot of research in that realm. In fact, one of our teachers, Jillian Bushkowski, recently defended her dissertation. So she's now Dr. Bushkowski. And she focused her dissertation as a case study on the implementation of CKLA here in Palisades, specifically utilizing implementation theory to support the work that we're doing. And through that lens, we created a very robust professional learning community, a PLC, that included a feedback loop with teachers and administrators. And that meant that group met regularly, plus monthly at least, with the administrative team. And that really helped to provide that feedback loop. And ending the year, 100% of our elementary teachers said that they felt supported by their administrators and their colleagues in this implementation process. And again, I enjoy giving accolades when they're due. And so the 2 coaches that came to us from CKLA, even from the jump in the fall, said that if I had not told them this was our first year of implementation, they would have had no idea, because our teachers really truly came to the table to their very best job they could, created an excitement about it. Again, I'll share briefly. One of the stories I remember is Rachel Tubiello shared that in her 1st grade class at Springfield, they were talking about Paul Revere, and she went through the adage or the rhyme that allegedly he had called out. And then the next day, her kids came back, and one of her students raised their hand and said, so my brother's in 4th grade, and at dinner last night, we were talking about Paul Revere, and he told me that what you taught me is not actually real, because he learned about something different in 4th grade. So even though and of course we know that's true. And so it was just really neat to hear that kids are actually going home and talking about CKLA and their subjects and stuff. They've been dressing up as it for Halloween. So again, we're really excited about that program. So much so that the board recently adopted CKLA, the middle school version, for grades 6, 7, 8. So that will also help with that familiarity and transition from elementary to middle school, recognizing and being familiar with the program. Of course, with an added bonus that is a middle school version, so there'll be a different structure, so there's not a sense of malaise, right? That, oh, I'm doing this again and again. It's going to be a unique process. That all being said, the goal from the board was for us to endeavor to have at least 85% of our students in the tested grades from K through 8, which means grades 2 through 8, would demonstrate growth from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, specifically on math. Now, again, this is only one measure of success. We have multiple measures of success, namely formative assessment, meaning ongoing assessments in the classroom, summative assessments, so chapter and unit assessments, and those are some of the ways that you see on the standards for the elementary level of the report card, and at the middle level for their grades on their report card, and how students are doing. So no one test at any one time. It is literally a snapshot of time in that moment. So no one test is going to tell you any full picture of the kiddo. So that's why we look at multiple measures. But again, to respond to this particular goal, I looked at map data. We looked at map data. And what we can see here is that when we look at our elementary implementation, that from fall to spring, 86.3% on the MAP test in grades 2 through 5 demonstrated growth. And then as we break that down, then we move to math, because math was implemented. We added ALEKS at the elementary level. We added the programs Everyday Math and Carnegie Learning at the middle school level. And when you combine the aggregate of grades 2 through 8, 92.3% of our students demonstrated growth on MAP from fall to spring, which is higher than any other year previous. I would also share specifically, and kudos to Springfield, 100% of students at Springfield demonstrated growth on the MAP test from fall to spring. You can see the elementary in particular was 97%, which carried that number. But noticing too that I put an asterisk next to the middle school. First of all, 79% demonstrating growth from fall to spring is also one of the highest numbers that we've seen in recent history. And I'd also note that that number is slightly deflated because the 32 students who took the Algebra Keystone exam were exempt from taking the MAP test because those happen concurrently. So they just came off of PSSA exams from the end of April to the beginning of May, to then the next week they're taking Keystones. So rather than saying, here's a third test, why don't you? The decision was made to exempt those friends, and one would then assume that those students taking the Keystone exam in 7th and 8th grade are generally very adept with math, and thus that number would have been higher. So I would make the assumption that that number would be well into the 80%, or if not low 90s at the middle school as well, had those 32 students, which again, our denominators are low. So had 32 students, more students contributed positively, that number would be higher. So all in all, I'm very proud of our teachers and our students for their work this year on the implementation and really embracing these new curricular initiatives. So I feel like that's a strong showing, and there's only room to grow, which is our plan going forward. So when I talk about looking at various data sets, so then looking specifically at elementary for CKLA, so you'll notice that again, kindergarten and first grade friends don't take the measure of academic progress. It's not really, sound for them to do so at that age group. We start in 2nd grade, which is traditional across the nation. And so I wanted to include some data here for our elementary reading and language arts program, which does include benchmark performance data for our kindergartners and first graders, as well as all of our other grades. Let me see if I can. Okay. So as we can see here, at the top, this is an aggregate of our Palisades School District. So we'll notice here that at the beginning of the year, so you can see that when you first start, you have students who are well below a percent that's below at benchmark or at grade level or above. So what you obviously want to see is you want to see these bars. You want to see everything sort of shift downward so that your red is smaller, which it is. Your yellow is smaller, which it is. Your green is larger, and in fact, here our blue is larger as well. So that demonstrates the fact that there was significant growth in our students at the elementary level within the program itself. What I really am excited about, or that I really appreciate, is the fact that if we quickly scroll down here to the upper grades, right? So notice here how at the beginning of the year, our 5th graders, only 28% were above benchmark, and at the end of the year, 40% were above benchmark. To me, that's a significant increase because this program, they were not familiar with this program for the last 5 years, right? Grade 5 is the 6th year of elementary school. So these students in grade 5 were able to embrace the program, learn its structure, understand what was being asked of them, and were able to increase their scores significantly. So again, kudos to our teachers and our students in that grade level. And then also I want to share here quickly in kindergarten. So you'll notice in kindergarten as well, an amazing job by our teachers and our students. You'll notice that we went from 42% of our kindergartners, which again, 42% sounds like a large number. It was 34 children, right? So hashtag perspective. So 42% were below benchmark, down to 11% at the end of the year. 25% were below benchmark, down to 8%. And a collective 81% of our students in kindergarten had risen and grown to be at or well above benchmark. I can share specifically, and kudos to Tiffany Hamilton at Tinicum. She, in her class of about 22 students, she has one friend who is not English speaking. So not including him in that score, 100% of her students either met or well above benchmark, with more than 50% of them well above benchmark. So again, really exciting opportunities here. And what I love about that, at the primary level, is that we only have places and room to grow going forward, because now our kindergarten friends will have this program as part of their background as they continue through the elementary school. And our hope would then be only to continue to see them grow and to continue to have numbers like this and diminish even further their reds and yellows. Okay. So what are some next steps when it comes to CKLA? So our teachers had professional learning today all day and again tomorrow. And so they had focused curriculum time this afternoon. They have a full day of curriculum time tomorrow. We have a very robust project for them to be working on to give us data, so that when the team comes in the summertime to work with me on looking at the curriculum and looking at our plan course and looking at our assessment calendar, we have the data we need from the boots on the ground. For the middle school in particular, we'll be planning, I'll be organizing a leadership workshop. So Carl and Rich and others, Karina, the department chairperson, and others can participate from CKLA in looking at the program through the lens of a leader. We'll also be doing some workshops this summer to review data and set goals. And then, of course, elementary, we're staying the course for next year, and we're charting the course at the middle school. Has to be a nautical theme, of course. As pirates, why not? And then finally, next steps for POMS Math. Again, same idea that there's been a lot of time given, a day and a half concentrated time without emails, without interruptions, to focus on the math program at the middle level. Today, there was a workshop, we scheduled a workshop on engagement strategies. So teachers participated in that, and that was for all math teachers, grades 6 through 12. Even though the high school doesn't use this program, I wanted them to participate as well. 4 of our teachers will be going to the National Institute for training in July. Dr. Scheibenhofer will be attending the leadership training from Carnegie Learning in July as well, which will help to kind of boost that knowledge base and to work with the teams to increase understanding. Again, more curriculum work this summer. And then again, as we'll talk about, the discussion that's been presented a few times is the middle school schedule, in which the goal was to increase academic time, specifically in the area of math. And so in doing so, this will fit even better with the course sequence that we have from both Everyday Math and Carnegie Learning, to get in as much material as possible, but also provide additional time to dig deeper and to provide additional and structured interventions and enrichment, so we can only continue to have further and better impact on each of our learners. And that is my report.
Thank you. Did you say that the National Institute training is at Carnegie Learning? Is that what you said?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, questions?
I have none.
No, that's a lot.
It is a lot, yeah.
I guess you talked about curriculum drop, or like not drop, that's
Implementation dip.
implementation dip.
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you. I just didn't have the right word.
Yep.
And I guess maybe we won't see that, or it might not be evident until we have the PSSA or the Keystone.
Mhm. For that particular measure, but the internal measure, what I, for lack of better terms, value more this
Yes.
assessment that ties directly to the curriculum itself
Mhm.
and the work that's happening in the classrooms. Is evident that there is a lot of growth happening, which is fantastic. And our goal was to hit at least 65%, and I think we're at 68.7%. Which doesn't mean that other students didn't grow. It just means that they didn't necessarily grow as much as we would have liked, per se. But again, with implementation, there is a theory that it takes 2 to 3 years to sort of remediate from new curriculum implementation, and we did not see that occur in our district.
I know the comments from the people that came from CKLA were always very, like you said, always very positive about how the teachers were implementing, so.
It is interesting. You do see, like, when you look at the, and Dr. Donnelly was the lucky recipient of many questions that I had before the meeting. So, you do see, like, in K1 and 2, as you look at beginning of year to end of year, you see the you know, the scores go up in the proficient and advanced more so than 3, 4, and 5. Because again, even though it's a new program, they're still doing a lot with letters and sounds and phonics and things like that. Whereas in the 3, 4, 5, you're hitting comprehension hard and the content's a lot.
Mhm.
So you see less of that the kids coming out of that in 3, 4, and 5,
Mhm.
but it'll probably strengthen as
Yeah.
the years go on.
And it's interesting because I know it was brought up by Marie Colley, about, preschoolers coming into kindergarten
Mhm.
and there being a significant difference there. And, I just got an email from Nicole at Lifespan saying that, Lori Runton and, Marissa Moyer had reached out about doing some collaborative work with curriculum, to help
That's great.
the preschoolers coming into kindergarten.
that's great.
Because there's
So,
a pretty good aspect of CKLA
Yeah.
for,
yeah, well, there
for
is, and
early.
yeah.
yeah, so that's great.
That's great. Right, just, Dr. Donnelly, wouldn't you have a second, just thinking through that,
Mhm.
the 30 odd kids that didn't take the MAP
Yes.
test, or my brain is about 10 to 15 minutes behind. Would you mind at some point just calculate, can you remove those from the middle school population and just
Mm.
let us, you can email us. I'm curious to know how many of those, once that's removed, what the percentage of growth looks like for the remaining population. We can assume that they grew because they took algebra. I mean, and the MAP test wouldn't have necessarily covered that, but I'd be curious to see that population.
Sure.
Well, and kind of almost a little bit of an opposite of that on, you know, we have the M-class data, you know, K to 5. I was asking Dr. Donnelly about math data for our K and 1s, which we don't do for math, which I understand. But do we have any other data? Again, not that we necessarily have to do it this year, but as we go forward, you know, how do we know
Yep.
our K and 1
Yep.
kids are growing?
Yep. So we actually had a meeting. Dr. Scheibanacher was there today with a bunch of teachers, Mr. DeFontney, and our focus group was about the impact and what we can be doing differently to provide stronger inclusion for all students in the core program, while at the same time finding and identifying appropriate intervention tools for students who struggle with math, both general education as well as special education. So we had a very great meeting today and identified some focus areas for the summer. And part of that was when Mr. Traber, as well, as we know, as our elementary math specialist, he, as a self-proclaimed, what did he call himself? A data nerd? Data nerd. He does carry with him, which I can also access and share with you, what's called, we use Acadience for benchmarking.
Great.
And so we do have a significant amount of data to show the growth that occurs for students at those levels through Acadience. So I can
That'd be
work on
great to
that.
see. That's
Yep.
great.
How is the CKLA for special ed students? Are they struggling with it, or does it seem to be helping them, or do we see a?
Yeah, so I would say that, thanks for that question. So I would say that our focus this year, which has been really strong and well received, is that we are attempting to have as many of our students, independent of their ability, in the core curriculum as much and as long as possible. Research shows that when you're surrounded by academic language and supports, that you could be able to achieve to higher levels than one might think. And so we're working and massaging at the elementary level, where learning support teachers are pushing into some of those classrooms and then only working with students and pulling them out based off of their specific IEP goals. Where, for example, if a student has a specific goal in writing, waiting until that portion of the CKLA lesson's happening, we're maybe sitting in with them, the IA might work with that student, and or they might get pulled out for a short period of time, but the rest of the time they're in the classroom. We are working to identify if there are additional supports for intervention. The Boost, which is the online piece, kind of like Alex is to math, Boost is to CKLA. In general, I provided this feedback, our students aren't as thrilled with Boost because ideally it's all about reading. And when it comes to math and Alex, it's gamified and they're like, we're going and got these things, right? And so both for our gen ed students, but also our special ed students, Boost has been less than their favorite. So we're working to see other things we can do to sort of augment that support for our learning support friends. But all told, I've heard nothing but great things.
Okay, thank you.
Well, and some, you know, and I'm sure you've seen this, some interesting new research coming out about, you know, reading intervention being stronger when it is tied to the program rather than like a different program.
Yes. Yeah.
Very interesting. So in other words, like if you're going to read about ancient Greece and Mesopotamia, your intervention should focus on what kids are going to read about, rather than like in many instances in the past, we purchased separate programs that have dug into skills. And the research now is telling us, nah, stick to the intervention for the program.
Well,
It's very
and
interesting.
case in point, Alex is
Yeah.
specifically tied to everyday math.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
100% growth in Springfield is amazing.
Very
So
interesting.
97% overall, which is very, very good.
Hey,
Just a quick plug for Carnegie Learning. We had a pretty intensive training at the beginning of the year with the math department. I participated in that. And throughout the year, we did look fors, Dr. Spearing and I, and met with Dr. Donnelly and met with the teachers and so forth, just to see that we're following the Carnegie Learning appropriately. But their support has been fantastic, and you can see the difference in the classroom.
that's awesome.
It's really engaged. It's good.
Good. Okay, questions from the audience?
I have a question.
Laura.
Oh, sorry, Laura Chantwell,
That's
not Nixon. I was just curious when so it's, 97% growth we're seeing, and I saw that it was a board goal was at 85%. And I think that you mentioned that that's more than that you've seen in previous years. I was looking back at the data presentation from last year,
Mhm.
because on our fact sheet, it usually shows your projected growth.
Mm.
And so on those data presentations, it said the percent of students that meet the projected growth. We don't have that here. So I'm just curious exactly how, since you don't have like amount of growth, if it's just, you're going a little, like we expect every student to grow over 9 months to grow a little bit.
Mhm.
So that's, it might be significant, but I just can't tell from that. So I was curious about
Okay.
that. And the other thing is that I was trying to look at the percentages really quickly,
Mhm.
but it looks like you're moving about 10% from the below and whatever the significantly low up. But then so we're still leaving like 35% in that below and more below.
Especially as you get into third, fourth, and fifth grade, yeah.
Yeah.
Are you
And
seeing that in the M class, data, or are you talking about the math data, the
it
math
was
data?
just what was shown on the.
Okay, I think that was the M
Right.
class.
Okay.
And so, and I think, and Dr. Ali mentioned that 67 or 68%, maybe that's what we normally see.
Mhm.
It just struck me that so
Sure.
5% below.
Mhm.
Sorry to do that. Okay.
Yeah, no.
Mhm.
It's always work to do, absolutely. And that's a little bit of what Dr. Donnelly and I talked about earlier today too. Yeah. Thank you for that. Okay, other questions?
I think you asked the same question I was thinking, but like, what was the Drew Williams version? What was the benchmark to show growth? Like, what was it, like, in order to say this student showed growth, what was the actual benchmark that we're using?
I think that is all determined by the MAP assessment. Like they have, because again, it is a standardized
Yeah.
tool. So they've done tons of testing to say, here's what the benchmark is.
Mhm.
So I think MAP provides the
Yes.
benchmark, right?
I mean, I'm sorry, I don't,
Okay.
I say like, it's like, hey, this student showed growth, this student didn't show growth. What was the actual amount of growth needed to say they showed growth? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah,
get-
I
get-
know.
One
I
point-
think that's
Yeah,
the
I
board's
think
fault and not Dr. Donnelly. So we
Yeah, and I think
created that.
that's,
We
yeah, I
will
think
take
that's
that
all the,
feedback
I think that
into-
MAP does all that,
Yeah,
right?
so
Yeah.
the board comes together to write those goals. And you're about 4 steps ahead of where we were. So your point is well taken, but I don't know that we define that for the administration.
Okay,
when
so
we-
any growth that counts, is that?
Correct.
Yeah, and we use what the MAP data was telling us was growth by their standards.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. 6th grade course in digital literacy.
Sure. Here we go. Okay, great. All right, so as we've been talking about all year, is the fact that, we have our updated middle school schedules we'll talk about later, again, tied to a goal that was given by the board. And in that, conversations through the comprehensive planning process, I also talked about the importance of the role of the school to work with students, teachers, staff, and actually community, both parents and in general, the community, about where we are with technology in the world today. Obviously, I don't want to assume, but I believe we're all aware of AI and artificial intelligence. And so this course is not all about AI per se, but as you heard me, if you were here at last month's meeting, you would hear me say, And actually I had a recent meeting with a solicitor who was giving a presentation on technology in schools, that we as a school district have a civic responsibility to ensure that our students that are attending schools here in our community have as much of a leg up as anyone else in the world who inevitably are being introduced to computers and AI and technology, right? Because it would fall flat on us to assume that any of this is ever going away, right? This is the world. None of our students in K-12 have ever lived in a world without a touchscreen. Like, fact check, like for real. So that being said, it doesn't mean that, and this course is not meant to say, oh, we're moving all online. Oh, nope, we're not going to go down that road today either, because that's not the point of this conversation. And as again, over the past few years, you've heard me report out on the actual amount of screen time at the elementary level, as opposed to the false narratives that occur out in society. But that being said, we wanted to develop a course that all sixth graders would take as they're entering middle school, where yes, there is a higher, I don't want to say reliance, but there's a higher opportunity for the use of technology for educational purposes than at the elementary level. And so to provide that service for our students in a world that's everly increasing with technology and communication and social media and all of these things, what can we do to sort of hyper focus in on some topics and modules that pull from pieces of other curricular areas, like elementary, talking about online safety, talking about bullying, to our health program at the middle level, to the high school and civics, right? And and plagiarism, right? What can we then do to provide our students with at least a cursory baseline in these topics? I also know and recall from previous conversations from the committee that there was a question of, well, why doesn't this happen everywhere? Well, it does happen in all of the classes, but what we're doing is using this particular course as a focal point, which will then be a jumping off point that I'll share with you the ideas of projects that will then be cross-curricular and incorporated within the 4 core content areas. So again, the idea of this course is, it's not gonna work. The idea of this course is to provide students in 6th grade with an overview of a variety of modules that impact their current world and the world of tomorrow. I did meet with, or electronically met with Mr. Missioner, who teaches computers at the middle school now. Many of these topics are already included in the course he teaches, but this, as he shared with me, makes it even more specific, and he really appreciated the structure that we have. Mr. Gilbert, who works as, or serves as our technology department lead as well, shared that his review was the same, and that he's excited to see what impact this may have on our students as they then move up into the higher grade levels. And in addition to that, or tangential to that, I believe that this is a great jumping off point to then prepare and create, and Cora was in this committee or subcommittee for the comprehensive plan, what sort of things we can do to incorporate our community and educate parents and community members if they so wish to participate in either a face-to-face lesson that maybe I'll lead, or maybe it's an online virtual Zoom session, but to provide education. We are an educational institution. No one, I believe, claims to be a specific expert, but at least we can share what is it our kids are learning and what are we making them aware of to help protect them and keep them safe in the world of technology that, again, is here. Whether we like it or not, we all can have opinions, but it's here. And what can we do to leverage that to give them what they need? So that all being said, as I'm sure those of you have all read over this before coming this evening, so you'll see that I broke down the plan course statement based off of the updated policy with the different areas such as objectives of the instruction, concepts and skills to be taught. Side note, this format does look different than what our other plan course statements look like. However, that's a null point, because in just a few minutes, we're going to talk about Toddle, which is an online curriculum platform. And once I send to them all of our statements, they will create a system that will be consistent, which will be both an in-facing platform as well as a community-facing platform as well. So with that said, so the idea here is that our students will be able to go through a number of modules and units. So first one is that students every day will begin their class with a warm-up exercise of additional gamified typing. Whereas I believe, it would be ignorant of us to assume that just because our students are born basically with technology in their hands. I mean, how many times have you gone out to a restaurant and the family's there not conversing, but yet they're 9-year-olds on a tablet, just saying. We can't assume that all the kids can type proficiently, so we want to make sure we're including that intentionally in 6th grade, as a little more typing will be taking place online. Side note as well, we also know, and I don't care for this, but PDE has moved all students to online testing for all tests, PSSA, Keystone. So starting in grade 3, there's no more pencil and paper, it's all online. So that aside. The next unit, and these are short units. This is a 23-day course where students will meet for 45 minutes every other day for one marking period. This second unit will be all about AI and focusing on AI. And the third unit will be about phishing schemes and looking at scam analysis. So how can you tell that email that I just got, should I click on that link, or that phone number that just called me? Do I respond back with a Y? Right? So those sorts of things that can give us information and give our kids a little more knowledge about what's real or not.
Adults need that training.
I
I think adults need that.
Yeah, well, and that's why I said, like, this to
Yeah.
me was the base
Yeah.
that I can then take and then create lessons for, not to be, patronizing, but for adults in the community, right?
Mhm.
The next unit, very quick unit overview, is going to be all about scam analysis. So I said fish now. Okay, the next one's all about looking at deep fakes as well as virtual bias. What does that mean? Well, that means that based off of the things that I'm scrolling through that I like or that I'm talking about, because spoiler alert, Big Brother's always listening. And if I were to talk about, vacationing in Tahiti a couple times tonight, some of you will go home and in your social media feed, Tahiti is going to start popping up, right?
Yep.
So talking to our students about that little bubble that's created for when I'm liking things or I'm going to certain web pages, why am I now starting to see all of this? And how is that manipulating what's going on in our minds and our brains? The next section will be talking about applications and talking about cyberbullying and recognizing if someone is being unkind to someone else, or the term be trolling, right? We're going to do a short unit, and that matches in with the conversation from elementary school, which is spoken to our students at the elementary level, and then is reiterated at the middle school in our health classes with Mrs. Kukowski. We're going to do a short stint on media and talk about plagiarism, right? So what's available, what's considered to be my content versus what's considered to be someone else's, and how does that correlate into papers I write in English class or a research project I'm doing? And we'll see some of these cross-curricular connections in just a moment. And then finally, the culminating project is that each student will create a 60-second survival video or an infographic in which they are taking what they've learned in this course and they're finding a way to make it manageable or understandable for a student in 4th grade, which correlates again to our elementary health program. And so what will then happen is all the students would present with each other. We're going to work on their public speaking skills, and we'll have a rubric that will be associated with that project. And then we can archive those and use them as a showcase, or perhaps Dr. Scheibenhofer has an evening where grown-ups are coming in and maybe there's a wall walk where you can see all these different pieces of projects that are being finished. So that's essentially what we're looking at for this course. Again, it's all about project-based learning, gamified practice, cross-curricular integration. So looking at the lessons, linking to math through graphing, talking about the biology of stress, and when we're talking about when I'm looking and I'm getting fed all of these things in my apps, like how is that changing the dynamics of my brain when you talk about doom scrolling and all of these things, paraphrasing and hooks, so talking about that's tied to English and plagiarism, and finally looking at what's considered to be real versus quote hashtag fake news, right? And so tying that into social studies and having our teachers in those areas contributing to these lessons so that students can see the real life applicability as opposed to just being what they're doing on that particular day in that class, right? And that is essentially what we have. There's work to be done in the specifics going forward. And Dr. Beer and I talked earlier today. One of the things that I want to include or will be including are even more specific technology pieces that will be utilized. So what websites and other points of access. So that'll be worked on over the summer. As I'm getting older, I'm learning that it's sometimes better to do some and wait before you do all of it and have to then trash it, because frankly, ain't nobody got time for that. So this is the presentation of the overview of what I feel to be a very well-defined shell of a course with really cool information. I'm excited to continue to work on this over the summer. I have a few plane rides, so I'm going to, American Airlines, I do free internet, so I'm going to be doing some work there to dig even deeper and create and prepare those resources. So what we talked about is that this plan course will not go to the full board next week per year, so long as you like what I'm saying. And then what will happen is I'll do additional, more specific work over the summer. This will come back for that approval in August. So we now have an August meeting, and then that will be in place for the start of the school year.
Great, thank you. Yeah, what we had talked about is, first of all, and Dr. Donnelly mentioned this, the structure is different from what we've seen in the past, but I like we said, with the title piece coming next, but also I think that the component of materials needs to be, especially for all courses, but especially this one, because, you know, the technology continues to grow and change, but also, you know, especially when you're talking about AI, people want to know what's being used to teach students about AI. Are they resources that are, you know, approved? And I'm sure Gary will look at everything, but even content wise, because again, the technology and now with all the screen time issues starting to come forward, you know, there's more and more. And I just think it would be good to have board approval of the technology that's being used. So we're going to add a materials component. So that's what we talked about. So other questions?
I was wondering, this is a required course, right?
Yes.
So every student is going to go through this course. And you're writing the curriculum, so everything is going to be coming out of you. Are there PD standards or?
Yep.
There are.
So they're integrated in here towards the end. These are particularly tied to the middle level technology standards, which
So
are
that's what I wondered.
which
yeah.
are part of the
Mhm.
STEEL standards, which is an updated version which came out in July last year.
Okay.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Can I jump in for a sec? So
Please,
I
yeah.
live and breathe this stuff. And I feel like you're teaching the same thing that I'm teaching to, you know, 60-year-old lawyers. So I live and breathe a lot of this, and there's a couple of things that come to mind. I'm so glad we're doing this. The one thing that I see that's coming up in the business world so much is academia's, that's not to say this outlines, but even in the law schools, we're bringing together law professors and college professors because the ban on AI is starting to translate as fear of AI in our workplaces. And we need people to be the opposite of that, right? Now, sixth grade is a whole nother beast, right? But it really is understanding how to harness this technology in an assistive way rather than use it to cheat or use it to do your answers. We all know that. That is an art. It is not easy. So I welcome Dr. Donnelly, if you will allow me to geek out. I have so many prompt engineering class, you know, I have a million of these things. And one thing that I find specifically useful, and maybe not, I don't know that we necessarily give them the technology, but rather demonstrate, is having model war, you know, having Perplexity, you know, they've got Gemini through the Google suite, but showing how the different models come at problems differently, I think is really, really helpful. Because they'll see that number one, the answer is always different. The models come at the answers differently. They're not getting an answer. They're getting something different. And I think having that conversation could be extraordinarily helpful.
Absolutely.
The only one, and this is perhaps sometimes Cora's point, but thinking through when to sit down and take a note and when to use a note-taking software. So some of those educational use cases is maybe more for ninth grade than sixth grade, but even if it doesn't make it in the curriculum, Dr. Donnelly, I think thinking through some of those things as the high schoolers hit an age-appropriate time for that. But I laugh because my oldest, who's near senior in college, was studying for the LSAT this summer, and he was writing down his wrong answers. And I said, "Oh, that's so funny. Why wouldn't you just put it in tracking software?" And he's like, "I learn better when I write it down."
Oh,
21 years it took.
Oh, wow.
But I thought of that journey in relationship to this because he really was born in a digital age. So, you know, playing a little bit with children around how they learn. So I don't know. I would love to help out. I would love to give you, I have the world's most curated prompts. So
I'm here in guest lecturer
yeah.
in all your spare time.
Well, I mean, your teachers are not going to have all the token limitations that, I mean, all of these are clients, you know, so we have unlimited tokens on all of this stuff. I don't think it's ready for student use, but a teacher demonstrating that, and I have a sandbox where the models come up all at once, so you see output.
That's great.
And I think it's so helpful because you'll see a hallucination in real time, and that demonstrates the point better than anything.
And that's going to be part of it. And so there'll be a much more robust teacher's guide that goes along with this. Like, for example, the AI, again, these are cursory level, right? And so they're about 3 days each for these topics. But for the AI, for example, it would be using approved. So let's say, for example, Gemini, where students are going to have to then create prompts, and they've got to then try different prompts. And there's going to be I have a structure for how to prompt. So they're going to learn what that is. And then from there, they're going to be given, an example that they then have to take and try to So there's going to be a lot of really
Yeah.
cool hands-on, but simple, but also very age-appropriate activities. But again, and we'll work through some of those technology pieces, materials for August.
That sounds great.
Well,
I
and
was
speaking, I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was wondering if, is this all going to be online, or is there going to be paper and pencil, any note taking or anything that they're going to be doing outside of actually being on screens?
I mean, I haven't dug that deeply. I'm sure there's going to be there will be opportunities for standing up and moving and having conversations. I mean, I think this course, out of any course, it requires you to be on your screen for
Yeah.
part of the time. But again, that's when I was in 8th grade and had typing class on a computer. I was in front of the screen for, every day for 45 minutes. But no, we intentionally work to include opportunities that are not computer-based. That being said, a lot of the work will be on the computer, but tangential to that will be opportunities where the teacher will say, all right, friends, let's go around. Now we're gonna do a jigsaw. So you did these prompts. Okay, and count off by 5s. Now 1's over here, 2's over there. Talk about what you just felt. What did you discuss? So that'll be built in. It will not be a course where students are coming into the classroom and working on their own and typing for 45 minutes. That's not what it is.
Yeah, and I saw some things in there, like learning what a large language model, doing that language
Right.
prediction. I think you could do that live, like have the kids predict
Right.
and
Yep.
see what, there's some fun things that I think that will get you out of that environment and really, getting your mind around what this technology is really doing.
And the capstone project, is it going to be a group project or is it individual?
TBD, there's still a little bit of work to do, but
Okay.
my initial design or idea was that each student would have an opportunity to choose a topic that speaks to them the most, and for them to create a 1-minute video or infographic. And then, I feel like if we have a robust collection, then we can pick out some of the best ones and maybe then showcase them in a fair or at the elementary level. So right now, I'm leaning more towards an individual little capstone project yeah.
My main concern is that the screens are individual and I don't know. I don't see young people interacting with each other as much. And I think, somehow maybe you could create something within the program that would have them working together and outside of themselves.
Well, so to that point, thanks for that. But to that point, whereas I and all of us at this table would each choose our own topic and do a quick video or infographic, whatever speaks to us best. The plan then from there, the next class session is when we're all around in what's called a gallery walk, where then you would rotate around and you would hear from Sylvia what her plan was, and she can show it to you and you can ask questions like, why did you choose that? And what did you like about that? What did that mean? Or I heard this. So that opportunity for engagement and to practice public speaking.
And the promptathon that you had.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
So is it going to be the same teacher for every class?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Good. Thank you. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I was just gonna say,
my
listening,
promptathon, Cora.
well, listening to Sylvia talk about stuff one of the other set of standards that you might want to consider putting in this course could be like some of the career stuff.
Yeah.
What are the different, bring
Yeah.
people in?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
hiring. In your
We
career.
cannot find,
Yeah.
we
I
cannot
think we need
find
to do
enough
that.
people.
Yeah, we need to do that.
And that's
more
just
more,
the legal
starting at younger
vertical.
ages. What are the careers that are available for students? What are out there? What hear from people and,
Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
very
that's the
early
beauty of
There's
Zello,
the-
which you approved, because that'll be
Right.
starting in
Yep.
kindergarten.
It's awesome.
No,
Yep.
I think she's offering her service.
No.
so this is going to be a 6th grade class.
Yes.
What are going to be the opportunities for, say, I think by the time they get to 9th grade, they're pretty immersed in this, but you've got 7th and 8th graders that could probably use this information as
Mhm.
well.
Mhm.
I know you said the hope is that there's some community and parent involvement. I don't know, that's just.
That's a great idea,
Something-
Betsy. But I think at this, Carl will kill us if he blows redo the middle. No. But maybe, I don't know. I
I
don't
would
think the
share
community
that
can.
this is their core 6th grade course to get them started with
Yeah.
middle school, but then the other teachers are expected to be able to incorporate these ideas into their content area.
That's,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Okay.
very, I think, yeah, I didn't think about that, but yeah.
Got a whole bunch of courses and a whole
Yeah.
bunch of teachers that all need to be sure. that they're
Sure, yeah,
incorporating
that
this.
they're-
The teachers probably
yeah.
need to be trained.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
That's right.
Yeah.
Listen, like I
Yes.
said, the adults, I mean, it's changing.
Yeah,
too
that's
fast.
that's where I was going.
can
And then
take
I
that
remembered that nobody ever shows up
Right.
for anything, so I
Right.
recalled it, but I would love to do something for the community, just have like a night where we could do some of this
Yeah.
stuff.
Well, I mean, I think it circles back around to the discussions that we had about cell phone usage even.
Yeah.
You know, you know, and identifying for parents, some of the restrictions that they could use for, you know, they felt the need for their young child to have a phone. Well, what restrictions can you find?
That's right.
But so I think, you know,
Yeah, let's see how the reaction is here, because I think there could be opportunities there to kind of either put it out there in the form of, you know, the newsletters and stuff, or have some sort of event.
Yeah.
I don't think parents know a lot about this stuff.
Right. Well, and again, it's changing all the time, really fast.
Yeah.
And it ties directly back to the comprehensive plan, because in the
Yeah.
comprehensive
So was Kim.
Oh, yeah, and Kim as well, Mr. Barbaro. So that idea that taking this and leveraging the work that we're doing for our students and making sure that our community and our parents are aware, and creating workshops and lessons and different things. So that's actionable steps that will be part of next year's plan.
Hey, audience? All right, oh, go ahead.
You have to remember, I've been in IT for almost 40 years. I've been watching the revolution plow us through. When my children were in this school, I found myself having to tell a teacher the difference between an operating program and an application in reference to Microsoft. I'm sitting here listening to this and AI. I've got 2 large businesses that are using AI in a big way, in the sense that you're talking about. I can tell you my experience on the street. I suspect this might be a different audience, but most people are pretty much clueless to the details of AI. And there was a time when we paid employees to learn applications when they're in the workplace. You learned Word and Excel at the employer's expense. We're there with AI. We really are.
Great.
And I just, if we don't think about this, the kids are going to be way ahead of the kids.
Oh, they are,
the
our
adults.
kids are away.
Just like the
Yeah.
smartphones.
That's right,
for
they are.
grandparents.
Right.
It's
Yes.
it is.
Very
It's
much
what
so.
it is.
Okay. All right, well, I want to keep us moving because I know we want to really get to the discussion on the POM schedule. So if you want to dig into Toddle?
Sure. Alrighty. So
Toddle, I know, it's a terrible name. It really is.
it's definitely
Toddle,
unique.
Toddle.
It's kind of like dongle, all these things.
That's
are
true.
Who knows? Alrighty. So much of the conversation from this committee over the past year and a half or so has been about, curriculum and transparency is really important. And we do have on our website and course statements. Some are up to date, others need to be updated. When I first arrived to the district just about 10 years ago, there was one of the leading curriculum warehouses was out there and is very efficient. However, it is very time consuming and requires a lot of manpower. Spoiler alert, I am one person who does all of the things. And that was something I just couldn't do it. I couldn't upload all of the documents and create charts and calendars and all the different things. So for me, the transparency was having our 5-year reviews posted online, all of our curriculum documents posted online, and it's always a work in progress. And that's why it brings us here today. And with the support of this committee, we would move forward with a newer version of a curriculum warehouse, which is much more user-friendly because it is, I will be providing to them the plan course statements, and they then, through humans and AI, will create the Palisades curriculum website, which would then save me time and energy to then really dig into the nitty-gritty, which is working with teachers on extrapolating from those plans to ensure consistency across grade levels and across subject and content. Another great feature of Toddle is its accessibility. So for those in the room that are unaware, the Department of Justice has a law that requires that all governmental agencies must have their materials that are accessible to the public, compliant with what you see there, WCAG 2.1, which stands for Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. Originally, the date for Palisades would have been April of 2027. They did push back 1 year for all districts and government agencies based off of the population that you serve. So because of the size of our population within our 101 square miles, which is kind of ironic because we have a smaller population, but we get more time. Central Bucks, for example, has to have theirs in compliance by next April. So, I mean, told me that, but I don't know. I'm not complaining because it gives us more time. also what we were talking about a lot during my monthly programs and services meetings is, we're obviously, yes, we want to make sure that what is available and accessible to our public is accessible to anyone in our public, independent of ability, disability, or what have you. However, it's a lot of work, and there are some things which are just a little like make you want to twitch about things like tables. I love tables. I like certain fonts, but apparently tables in certain fonts aren't great. I don't know. The color yellow. And I said, well, guess what? Palisades is gold/yellow and purple. We're not going to not include it. So I don't know. You can find us or something, but we're not changing our colors. But this platform is already compliant, so as is, and so what Dr. O'Connell and I and others are doing intentionally is, as we're moving forward and identifying new partners and programs and platforms, that they are already compliant. As we know, Board Docs is going away because of its not being compliant, so we don't want to find ourselves adopting a platform and then all of a sudden realizing now we have to make it compliant. So we're intentionally only working with organizations who can guarantee that, and Toddle is one of those. So Toddle is a curriculum planning and mapping program. Just as a brief example here, this did not link to the page I wanted. Let's see, here we go. Okay. So for example, this is what a page might look like for our teachers. So what happens is, let's say, for example, Unit 1, Renaissance and Reformation. So simply by my providing our plan course statement, all of this is populated, which talks about the potential or the recommended amount of time in the schedule, what the summary is like, our standards and objectives for each of these areas, what are the big ideas, essential questions, skills, performance assessments, etc. And I will then be working with Toddle over the summer and throughout all next year to define what it is we expect to see in our platform. And we will begin with a slow rollout. So next year's cost for $4,000 will be for me and our department chairpersons to work through a variety of training opportunities, as well as working with Toddle to get the format just as we want it. And then from there, the next step would then be the following year to integrate all of our teachers so that they can then go into the platform and do what I just showed you, which is see, okay, so any teacher, when I'm coming in, I'm teaching second grade, all right, I can see that this unit for math, it's going to take about 2 to 3 weeks. Am I on track? Am I where I need to be? What is my colleague in that school? Where are they at with that, right? It also then is going to then have a public facing component. So easier to read by, members of our society who are not educators, right? Rightfully so, but nonetheless will show community members and grown-ups. If you click on kindergarten, I'm like, hey, I've got an incoming kindergartner. I'm curious what Palisades teaches for science in kindergarten. You go to kindergarten, science, and voila, there are the units that we have, and here's what's accessed within there. And again, the inclusion of what those topics and items will be for the public facing will be tied to our policies that we have board approved, including materials and other such things. But I really feel that this will be a really great way to continue on that road to transparency, which again, we have always been, right? But at the same time, there's only one way to go, and that's up. So by utilizing a platform such as this, I'm comfortable and confident that we would be able to then have a really robust and sound program and platform that is easily manipulated, such that when we do have course updates and plan course updates, it's not going to require tons of time to have teachers not be in the classroom, because we want them teaching their students, right? And then I can be focusing on pushing in and observing, as opposed to sitting in an office somewhere and typing through things and connecting standards and doing crosswalks. So again, as you see here, my goal would be for year 1 to train key members, work with Toddle itself to build out that curriculum. And then in year 2 would then be to update the curriculum, republish those updates, and then onboard the rest of our staff so that all of our teachers are well-versed in the platform for their curriculum and their subject areas K through 12. And finally, pricing structure. So it's $5,000, I apologize. There's a $1,000 curriculum migration fee, which is only a 1-year cost. $4,000, which will be paid for through Ready to Learn block grant for year 1. And then going forward, as you see, as we increase our users, would increase, right? Because now you have much more traffic, much more, more robust in this platform and what we're using it for. And then again, I really appreciate that it is compliant so that our community, independent of ability, is able to access the information that they seek.
Okay, great. So for me, anything that maps and structures the curriculum, I'm good. So I'm good.
I'm just wondering about the users. So when it talks about users, is that people that are inputting into that's
Mhm.
you and
Yes.
people that are inputting,
Correct.
but it's not talking about people that can access the information.
Nope.
Okay.
Yep.
Anybody can access that, right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead. What would I can see administrators, what are the teachers' roles in inputting
Sure.
curriculum?
Yep. So our department chairpersons
Okay,
represent their departments, K through 12, and I work with them specifically, and they'll be the ones that themselves and or their co-chairs and or small cadre of teachers in their department would then work to make sure that the documents we have are up to date and accurate. And then it would be that chairperson with me would then be working with Toddle to create that department's plan course. And then going forward in year 2 is then when all of our teachers could then go into the platform and say, okay, so I'm curious, I want to look ahead and say, like, I'm mapping out, because again, as a nerd, I would be like, okay, I'm teaching Spanish 4. I want to see, like, where am I expected to end at the end of the year? What does it look like mid-year? Am I on the right pacing? So I would be able to go in and check and see.
okay, so how is that different than what a community member would do?
Yep. So the community member would not have the calendar to know, like, okay, this should take
Oh,
4
okay.
weeks.
They
Like,
would just see the
correct.
Plan
whole-
course statement.
the whole.
Correct, but it'll be
Alright, I
in
see.
one space, very visually appealing, compliant with what's expected of us legal by law.
Okay,
And would that be accessed on the website?
That's correct. Yep.
This all sounds great. And the teachers would do in that year 2, start doing their lesson. I assume they're submitting lesson plans somewhere. My husband complains about them on occasion.
Yeah. If-
Not here,
Mhm.
to be clear. So they'll be using this, and that's on video. He's gonna get fired. He submits regardless, you
Yeah.
submit them up to you. Okay. Sorry, I'm so tired, guys. The educational ecosystem we've got here, is there any, thing, like a true IT person here, but, Canvas versus Click-It, whatever, I don't remember the name of this thing. Toggle,
Toddle.
Tickle. I'm done. Is there any connectivity there in terms of being able to, because then they create that Canvas classroom with all the assignments, which I assume should arguably at some point should lock into those lesson plans.
Yeah, so interestingly, so we are tiptoeing into the platform because it's newer, right? And I want to make sure that what we're investing in is meaningful and worthwhile. It's my understanding that what I'm referring to and sharing with all of you tonight is but one component of
great.
Toddle.
Okay.
Obviously as sales folks, I do want you to learn about all their components and pieces. And I have been told that there was an infographic I saw in which it shows X, Y, Z, AA, BB, CC, D platforms that many districts utilize as pieces. And that allegedly, or supposedly, I should say, allegedly is negative, supposedly Toddle, there are places that just have Toddle that take the place of all of these other components. Of course, different pricing structure and things of that nature. But what I'd like to do, to your point, is to look at it, see it, look at the usability, and then from there potentially grow into that such that it is, I'm a big fan of consistency and removing things from the gluttonous plate as much as possible. So if that's something that we can potentially do with this platform, then that'll be a conversation down the road.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, it's interesting. It says Toddle is an LMS.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
interesting.
that's
Okay,
what I was
Yeah.
reacting to.
Yep.
Interesting. Okay.
And there's a lot of other educational, I looked at the Toddle site and there's a lot of other schools that are using it. Do you interact with any? I mean, is there any
I've
interaction?
not yet. I will be in September. I'll be speaking on a panel in Hershey, and a number of the districts that'll be there do use Toddle.
Using Toddle, okay.
And I
Which
saw
would
like
be-
Atlanta and Dallas use it. I
Yeah.
can talk to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I can imagine that I don't know that we'd want to share it out broadly, but something like an AP class, like an AP European history that we just saw, you might want to know where you are in comparison to your
To others,
colleagues.
right.
Absolutely. Yeah,
From
Totally agree.
a pacing standpoint, and which would either please you or freak you out, but could be very, very helpful for, it's not competitive, but
Okay, Linda, go ahead.
So I'm just curious, and you may have said it and I missed it. When you're crafting what's going to be uploaded into that,
Mhm.
whatever it is, it's Toddle.
Toddle.
It's a platform, whatever it is.
Yep.
Todd, we'll take on Todd.
Is that an opportunity, there is an opportunity for if teachers are using not just a curriculum, but other supplemental things, that's where that would also get plugged in? or not?
Not sure yet. Thanks for the
Okay.
question. What I can say is that when we go back through all of our plan course statements and identify the various components attached to the updated policy, that 100% will become part of that. And then we'll have those conversations and find out what, to your point, if there are other things that are being used, what is the recommendation and what are the expectations for what should or could be or not be. So that's something I'll make a point
And
of
that's
that.
some of the materials piece that we're talking like, what are the materials that get used here? And that includes
Yeah.
supplemental. Yeah,
Of being able to put that in and know what specifically.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, though but arguably, if it's in the plan course statement for the policy, then it would, the AI is gonna
Yes.
bring
agreed.
that forward.
Yes.
So presumably, yes, but I think we've got to test it.
And how about if, like, and I don't have any idea if teachers do this now or not, but let's say the expectation is that they do move at a certain pace,
Mhm.
but it's not working out that way. Obviously, it's more important that the students have understanding
Mhm.
and we adjust to the need of the students rather than make the curriculum be the guide, right?
Sure.
There's plenty of opportunity, though, that would be posted on the website.
Mhm.
It may look different if they need to just give it more time, right?
For sure. Oh, yeah, absolutely. So it's but a guide, right? On our conversations are always that, for example, in a classroom, when I was a middle school Spanish teacher in another district, there were 4 of us that taught Spanish full-time in that school. And we endeavored to be as close to one another as possible when it came to pacing, just because, middle school kids and assessments, and then you're in one class and she's in another class, and I give you a quiz 2 days before, now you're going to give her the answers, right? But
Or AI.
but there was that sort of idea that being as consistent as possible. However, and that being said, as a teacher, if I find that let's say period 2 Spanish 2 and period 4 Spanish 2, they might be a day off. And that's okay, because I want to make sure that these kiddos get the concept.
Right.
And so this is not a hard and fast saying you must be on this. I'm not that draconian, but it is flexible. And that also gives us the opportunity to take notes and to then revise and adjust if necessary, to say, ultimately it looks like all 3rd grade teachers are not actually able to complete this unit in 2 weeks. It's going to take 2.5 or 3. Okay, let's update it in the plan. So now we know what that's going to look like.
I think another group that really benefits from pacing is our new teachers.
Yes.
So when they have something to use, they're gonna get better over time, but just to have something to know how much time
Yeah.
they should be spending,
Yeah.
that's a real asset to that group.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. So we'll move forward with this. All right, and then last item for topics and descriptions, dual enrollment agreement.
Yeah, so this would be quick. This is standard that the Bucks County Bucks County Community College does require an annual update to the memorandum of understanding. What this does, as we know, is allows our students at the high school, should they so choose, to enroll in some courses. What's new this coming year, which is really exciting, which I'll show you here, is that with this updated agreement, we will continue to have 2 courses taught here at the high school by Bucks County Community College professors. Those are Intro to Sociology and Intro to Psychology. But then we've also applied to allow for the History of the United States one. So the courses at the high school that will be tied to, and I need to get this from Mr. Heffernan, but there are going to be 3 courses at the high school, which will correlate to a college level History of the United States 1, History of the United States 2,
Great.
and English Composition 1.
Awesome.
I don't want to make an assumption, but I'm going to assume those are most likely our AP courses. But nonetheless, we were able to identify the courses we teach. It was correlated to the syllabus, and those 3 high school teachers, because of the way that the agreement has been modified, because they will have to have at least their master's degree. They have to be at least tenured. There are regular stipulations that they have, but because by that and by default, the students in that course can opt to then receive college credit for those courses. This is step 1 to what we promised you, which was that over the course of next year as well, we'll be working to identify additional programs. But as we said, perfunctory is not for us, right? So you'll see other local districts in which they have, this relationship with that school in Pittsburgh and this relationship with that school here. Now, but then at the end of the day, how are the kids taking courses? They're online, they're put together. And we, Dr. O'Connell, me, others, all of us struggle with, well, how is that really a college level course? And what are you getting out of it? What about that experience? What about the rigor and expectation that comes along with that? So we're very intentional about our dual enrollment options, but we're going to continue this year as promised to be able to come back to you with additional opportunities. But this is a really great first start, I believe, and I wanted to share that this evening.
I just wanted to share too that this has been years in the making, not just on our end, but through Bucks County Community College. So I really do appreciate them continuing after years of the local district saying our teachers are really skilled and are able to teach these courses. And, you know, in the past probably year or two, they've made real great strides. So I want to thank Bucks County Community College for continuing to work on this, and our kids are going to benefit greatly from this opportunity.
So I'm looking at the tuition fees and payment terms, and it says $130 per credit. That would be when,
We pay, yeah,
yeah, that
parents pay.
parents
Parents
pay
pay,
for that.
correct,
Yeah,
yep.
Okay.
This is phenomenal.
Yeah.
This is phenomenal. And I'll just share, because I
Agreed.
think we have a lot of our Powell community here. This program has been critical to, I think, the gifted selections as we get to the high school, the ability to kind of toggle over into taking a Bucks County Community College class because there's not this or there's not, you know, to fill sort of those gaps. I'm seeing this in real time and really, really pleased with the options that Bucks County Community College can kind of buttress what we're offering for those kids. So for any kid really, but
And I know this is not going to be popular, but I'm a much bigger fan of dual enrollment than I am of AP. You know, I have 3 daughters. One went to Lehigh, one went to Pitt, one went to LaSalle. Dual enrollment paid off far better for them than AP did. So I love the dual enrollment. I love increasing that. And I love, you know, looking at courses that we have or AP courses that we have and making them also, you know, dual enrollment potential. So that's awesome.
I would say another real exciting thing here is these are courses obviously we see taught on our campus. So
Yes.
our colleagues in
Yeah, yeah,
Penridge,
yeah.
for example, those students at Penridge High School could walk across the street and access Bucks
Yep.
County Community College courses
Yep.
Yeah.
and not be based on our geographic location. This is the model that we've really needed for some
Right.
time. So
And these courses, these credits are going to be transferable to, and, you know, not just Bucks County.
It depends, yeah, it depends on the
Depends
on
college
the
they go to.
college.
It's always up to the college,
Yeah.
but generally, yeah.
History and composition
Yeah.
generally
Yeah.
And
can go
generally,
for
that's
general
right.
ed
That's
credits.
right. Yeah,
I agree.
agreed. So that's great.
Even psychology and sociology
Yeah.
usually will qualify for general ed credit.
Alari is getting a ton going to Pitt. She's
Yep.
from all of these.
Yep, great.
Yeah.
Okay, so that will go to the board agenda. Perfect. All right, questions from the audience?
Observation with our students, our kids, of going into sciences and engineering. AP is a wonderful thing. The higher engineering schools, not so much. They say, oh, it's nice you took AP. This is what you'll be doing.
This is what you
Which
have
is
to take.
probably what you experienced. And that's, I'm talking RIT, MIT, Rensselaer, they're all that way.
Yeah, but it's a tremendous space.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. That's great.
So the dual enrollment thing, that's so much more acceptable to a lot of the colleges.
All right.
Oh,
Actually,
I'm sorry.
One thing, point is, I know it's not really about this, but I brought dual enrollment to my own school as a potential thing, because it's the kids. And in my district, they fought it, they don't want it. because
Really?
Getting fewer kids take AP tests, and that's the par school rankings and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's one thing downside.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, I was kind of like, really.
Huh. I mean, you could have both, but I guess, yeah.
But I guess the kids know they're gonna get credit anyway,
Yeah.
they opt out. of the test.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Right.
that's, and the
Thank
tests are
you for sharing
expensive.
Yeah,
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
when I had 2 kids taking APs, it's 110 a
Yeah.
pop and they were like 5 each. So
Yeah.
it's significant. And if they're not going to get credit, to your point,
Right.
they're a pre-med or they're doing that and they have to take chemistry 1 no matter what.
That's right.
It does tend to add up. You know,
Agreed.
pre-calc, that's another one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
but colleges look at your highest level course that you take
They do.
based on what your high school offers. So
Right.
if that's the highest level that's offered, feel good to challenge yourself.
Exactly. All right, so let's move to discussion POM schedule.
Yeah.
All righty.
And just, you know, little history on this. So, you know, we heard a great presentation in, I believe it was February, about the potential changing of middle school schedule. And at that point, it was still kind of like, well, we think we're going to go down this road. And then we talked a little bit more in discussion item in March, and it was like, yep, okay, we're going to do that. So there's a lot of planning and preparation that is going into this. So we thought it would be good at the end of the school year to come back and revisit where are we. We also know, you know, we've had some questions about the gifted program. And I know that we're going to talk about that some tonight, but I think that we're under some really good direction as far as where we're going, and Dr. Donnelly and Dr. Scheibenhofer are going to fill us in.
Absolutely. So Dr. Scheibenhofer, our middle school principal, is here as well to support, as you shared in the presentation that he made in February, detailed the really robust process that began in August of this past year, involved many stakeholders, from teachers to parents, to talk about what the new schedule would look like. Again, and then today, we did put together in preparation for this evening, in which we may then add additional to this document that we then plan to send out electronically to all families in the PAL program rising 6th through 8th grade by Friday of this week, to sort of memorialize what the conversation was. So, you know, why is the middle school schedule changing? So as a brief review, again, a board goal was given to redesign the middle school schedule in order to preliminarily increase academic time in the area of mathematics, because we identified that math is an area in which we need to see more growth. And what was the beauty of that is that it, coupled with our new curriculum, we now will be able to give our teachers the time they need, as I shared previously, to not just go farther, but also to go deeper in certain areas, to provide opportunities for enrichment, provide opportunities for intervention. And so when Carl and his team and I were speaking to colleagues from across the area, the region, including Bucks County and outside of Bucks County, we saw a trend in middle schools over the past few years, 3 to 4 years, in which they have moved to a model, which is what was presented to you in February, in which the core content areas, the 4 core academic areas, were essentially an hour long. So it took 58 minutes, and again, in the world of education, every minute counts. Some of my friends are like, hey, what time are you coming over? I'm like, I don't know, like 13 minutes away. Like, can you just say 15? Like, no, because lunch starts at 11:57, like you get, right? So that all being said, so our core content area, so this was driven by 2 things, which was to increase math in particular, but that lent itself into ELA and to social studies and science, social studies, science, ELA and math all have new curriculum. So those 58 minutes will lend to that. Again, we recognize that it's not just increased time that's going to impact our students, but it's the intentional use of that time that will impact our students with the fidelity of the use of each of those core programs. So again, we're introducing CKLA, our English Language Arts, which is a core course. Next year, Math Carnegie Learning we had, but this is great because that program really would be even better received were there more time. And then, as you heard last month, our science department with the new science standards and the modality of 3-dimensional design and instruction are moving to TWIG. And so just again, to give our folks, our teachers and our kids time to work with those standards and activities, you know, with that hour block really will serve to their advantage. It also allows for more opportunities for differentiation, right? So teachers are not expected to quote unquote lecture. Teachers will not be having kids on a Chromebook for 58 minutes. That's not real. That doesn't happen now. It's not going to happen next year. But what
She's
is gonna
watching,
happen-
she's watching.
But Cora is watching, and also fun fact, Cora.
I'm writing this down.
She's writing it down.
Right.
In cursive, in
Yeah.
cursive.
So I was going to say earlier, so it's not just writing something down that can help folks keep in their brain, but it's when you step it up to cursive that you actually
That's right.
remember more.
You're
Yep.
absolutely
You know why I
right.
remember that? Because I wrote that down in cursive.
Good job.
So that was the impetus for why there was a change at this point in time. And again, many months of work went into looking at structures and talking with colleagues. I know Carl, you know, spent lots of hours on phone calls with principals and folks in other districts, with Dr. Spearing and his teachers. And so that was a change for the time periods. Our elective classes, which are currently 44 minutes, 43 to 45 will remain the same. So those are those courses where students take physical education, computers, technology, art, etc. Okay. in general, I know it's not on this page, this is designed as an FAQ for our families with the PAL program. But just again, as a quick reminder, 6th and 7th grade, real no other significant changes. 8th grade, the change for our students, which has been received well, and students had to opt into their electives. So again, by 8th grade, right, you have the opportunity to select courses that you want to take. Many of our partner districts have already had that in place. Again, similarly, 6th and 7th grade traditionally have a bit of an opportunity to experience everything, to start to hone in on what are the things that you actually like. And then in 8th grade, you have some options. So our students selected either Spanish or French. In addition to that, they then either selected one of the music programs, so either choir, band, or orchestra. And then based off of, if you selected music, you got to select one additional elective. I know earlier in the year there was a potential concept that physical education would not be, or gym class would not be an option. That is an option. So our 8th grade friends did get to, or rising 8th grade friends did get to select. So in addition to their wellness block, which includes health and 10 days of gym, students, now it's not guaranteed every student that wants is going to get it, right? Because that's how course scheduling goes. But I'll be working closely with Dr. Scheibenhofer and Dr. Spearing and Ms. Brown, the school counselor, to hand schedule all of these kiddos. And then so students will be some of that opportunity, because only one student wanted computers in 8th grade, which is great actually, because Mr. Missionary, who teaches that, is also certified in phys ed. So he'll be able to teach gym to the students that want gym as an 8th grade special. So that all aside, those are the major differences. I would also then say too, so to bookend all of this, so in addition to the courses, the classes being increased in time, and as Dr. Scheibenhofer shared back in February, we will end the day with not a resource period, not a study hall period, but a very focused, data-driven, multi-tier systems of support, so MTSS-driven pirate blog, in which students will be traveling the building. And the beauty is that every student has the exact same pirate blog. So what that means is students can then, if we see that, as we're looking at the data, if we're finding that there's a small cadre of kiddos in all 3 grade levels who are struggling with double-digit multiplications, I think about that, right? We can then say, okay, you know what, these 17 kids have been identified needing additional supports. Doesn't matter what grade you're in, you're going to have some support and some intervention time with X teacher for the next X number of weeks until you can get this down and you have some more automaticity with it. Once you've been able to meet the benchmark, then we're going to find something else you might need support with. Or maybe you don't at that point need, and you're just kind of coasting and doing great. So maybe there are some passion projects you can work on, right? You can go and visit with Ms. Donato and have her support you down in the art room for something, right? So the sky is the limit, and while similar to the digital literacy course, this is the shell, and there's still additional sort of like landing the plane concepts that will be happening over the summer, and that's administrative work. We'll be continuing to have those conversations, the team of us, to really hone in and make this the best possible, so our students are getting this experience that they need for academics, because again, as a school district, that's what we're here for, is to teach our kids, but make sure they're safe in their environment. Because again, as I said before, if you haven't accessed Maslow, you will never get to Bloom. So we want to make sure that we're maintaining the mentoring periods. That's 20 minutes a day. Those students will be together with that cohort for the year. And that's how the middle school model is maintaining that concept to really help students through, and as you learned about Character Strong, to really hone in on being a human and a person and a good person of good character, which accesses the Maslow, right? And the hierarchy of need, which then will hopefully help our kiddos be more successful when it comes to accessing academics through the concept of Bloom taxonomy. So specific to PAL, because I know that's what many of us are here for, we wanted to share with you a little bit about the differences between this current year and what is happening next year. So different, and Dr. Beer and I met, we meet before every EPS meeting. We're fortunate that we have a delicious Fieldstone down the street, so we typically go for a brief lunch because we're both wicked busy, but it's great to catch up once a month. And so we talked about some of the questions or concepts or even narratives that might have been out there about what's happening or doesn't happen, and wanted to make sure that we could kind of memorialize this for folks to give you this is what is happening now and what will be happening next year. And I'm just going to go through this, and I'm going to turn it over. Then what I'll do is I'll turn it over to the committee, and we'll Dr. O'Connell in the committee. And if there are additional questions that we can't answer, Carl, you can fill in as well. But so, for example, now this year, the current teacher in that role, she has a gifted seminar 6 course. She has a gifted seminar combined 7th, 8th grade course. She also teaches an 8th grade reading special ed course, so a co-taught course. So she's a teacher of record, and a special ed teacher works with her in the classroom. And she also has another prep where she's teaching English 7. In addition to that, she has release time where she leaves the building to support as the coordinator for our elementary program. That was a big push to allow for our students to have more of a consistent approach in all our 3 elementary schools, K through 5. And so that's what her schedule is full, right? So I know that that there were some thoughts out there that Ms. Kessler, the teacher, is in the building and is pushing into classrooms and supporting kids and, you know, having kids come to her. That's not actual. This is the reality here, is that she has a full schedule. And so next year's schedule for the new person that Dr. Scheibenhofer and Dr. Beer and others were on this committee's parents, students, teachers, to hire the next English teacher for the school, who will also serve as the coordinator, the PAL coordinator for the middle school. Again, we'll be having, so then the difference is that whereas we had gifted 6 and then gifted 7, 8, next year gifted seminar, which we'll talk about later on down the road, will be 6 through 8, which will be between 16 and 20 students. That teacher will teach CKLA grade 7, CKLA grade 8, and then there's a co-taught CKLA grade 7, but the purpose of that, blocking that time out for this new teacher, who, after interviews, someone has been identified who is a veteran teacher who is very well received by her communities and understands pedagogy of English language. So it's not a new teacher, not someone out of college. That co-taught is different than this year's co-taught. This co-taught is that this teacher will be pushing in to CKLA grade 7 for a block to work with Mrs. Valiant, who will be one of her mentors. And she will then be able to be there to support and to observe and see what Palisades, what the middle school model is like. But it also affords us the opportunity that if there are needs for her to have a GIEP meeting, or to go and observe another teacher, or to go and have conversations with our students in the PAL program, we have that time and that ability in her schedule where she's not responsible for students at that time on her own, if that makes sense. So that's in there as a way by which to provide her some flexibility, but also to work with her mentor in a way to really build her capacity, because CKLA is new for everybody. And then finally, the Pirate Block enrichment planning is built into the schedule so that she's able to then provide specific and individualized plans and supports for our students in the PAL program. She will be in the building all day, every day. Which is different because one of our elementary teachers who has gone through the boot camp, has gone to a leadership fellowship cohort at the Bucks County Intermediate Unit, and who was selected to attend, I think one of 100 folks was selected to attend a gifted boot camp at Penn State this summer. So she will be taking over to ensure that there is consistency among the 3 elementary schools when it comes to programming and GIPs. So the next thing that we have touched base on a little bit was Gifted Seminar. So currently, Gifted Seminar takes place, it supplants a reading course, which is about 44 minutes a day. Reading at the middle level is an antiquated model that many districts are moving from. And the reason why reading was selected is, one, is not a core academic course, right? The 4 required academic courses are social studies, science, English, and math. And so that course was identified where that would then be supplanted for Gifted Seminar, because students traditionally in the gifted program are in need of intervention when it comes to reading. Now, as a side note, we also know that not all students who are in the gifted program have a giftedness in reading and math, and right? Some students may have giftedness in multiple areas, but we don't assume that every student in the program is going to be accelerated in math or accelerated in reading. They very well may be, but we can't assume that. That course is going away because CKLA is a comprehensive program which has, and during that 1 hour of time, will cover the concepts through a spiral model, which is the better way, according to the science of reading, to really then increase our students' understanding of grammar and knowledge as they move through the courses in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Currently as well in the Gifted Seminar, there traditionally has been a focus on National History Day, which is great, and lots of kids have enjoyed that. Not all kids have a fascination with history, and so that's a piece that will continue if students are interested in it. So what's different for next year is that Pirate Block, which is 44 minutes, so the same amount of time, will replace that Gifted Seminar. And I'll get to this next point, so it doesn't seem like one is different than the other in a negative way, but rather the beauty of our friends in the PAL program together for Pirate Block means that they and the teacher can work and focus on the I in the GIEP. They can focus on the individualized component, right? What are the goals that I have? I have a friend moving up from Tinicum from 5th grade to 6th grade who's really interested in electronics and electrical engineering. So what a great opportunity that based off of his personal interests and goals, he can work through a research project on designing a circuit board. And because it's during Pirate Block and Gifted Seminar, he then has a chance to go down and talk to Mr. McMullen about how he can then, is this right? What do I need to do? How do I, right? So he can use his resources in the building during that time, come back and report back to his small cohort. Maybe the teacher has National History Day for the students that are interested in that. So they have an avenue in a safe space where all students in that space can engage in conversations about research projects and interests that they are focused on, where they are comfortable sharing at the level of aptitude that they have, which oftentimes is different than maybe their peers of that grade level. So that's what I see as a huge win, which is the opportunity to really individualize interests and projects based off of what students' interests in addition to their goals are. How else are students being supported? So currently, the grouping of students, our PAL students may or may not be in an advanced math class. If so, that doesn't mean that they're necessarily in a class. There is no class that is all PAL students of any subject area. But right now, so they're placed in math based off of their abilities, just like all of our students. In reading, again, as we said, reading was identified as a non-core course. And again, because many of our students in the gifted program, it's assumed don't require intervention. So that was a really nice space to place that time, that concentrated time for our students. Now, students in our PAL program are just are heterogeneously placed in grade level classes. So if I'm a 7th grader and I'm identified in the PAL program, I might be in class. I may have a friend who's in PAL in my class, but I might not. I might be the only student, and that's okay, right? And that's how they're currently scheduled. For next year, again, math is based off of individual abilities, right? So again, if I qualify for pre-algebra in 6th grade, that's where I'm going to be placed, just like always, no change there. But what I believe to be the beauty of this schedule is then, so in addition to the concentrated focus on projects and individualized, GIP support during Pirate Block / Gifted Seminar, is the fact that we will also be hand scheduling all of our students in the PAL program so that all of our 6th grade students will be in the same CKLA class. It's not a class of just, 5 or 6 kids, but they will have their cohort together where the teacher intentionally can be differentiating and enriching those students during that time, right? So as good teachers do, they differentiate. Now that we have an hour of time, so an hour every day, students who are identified in PAL and can work together in that class. Maybe there's an activity happening on this side of the room, and there's an activity on this side of the room. It might be that this group of friends are working together. Not to say that we're saying these 6 kids are going to always do everything all together at the same time, because that's not socially healthy. But they're in a room in which they are being educated, and the teacher knows, okay, these friends are in the gifted program, and then she can then coordinate and have a conversation with the new teacher of the gifted and track progress and track their goals, because it's a known, they're all concentrated. The beauty of the 7th and 8th grade would then be that this teacher coming on board would then, similarly, students in 7th grade would be in the same CKLA class. And it happens that this teacher would be that class's teacher. Same thing with 8th grade. So it's additional built-in benefit there that this teacher will have 7th grade PAL students in their ELA class and 8th grade PAL students in their class. So again, it's additional time that students are having time to focus and work with each other than we have now. Chapter 16 requires only enrichment in a classroom provided by a general education teacher. So from the perspective, as we've been talking through this, we're trying to find ways to maximize this new schedule to give these particular students additional opportunities to work together, both in an academic setting, so an ELA block, as well as in that individualized and more personal section, which is Gifted Seminar, which really gives them that chance to grow as a learner and an individual. And having 6th, 7th, and 8th graders together, again, they're only 2 years different, 3 years different maybe. And also, how cool is it that our 8th grade friends in the PAL program can mentor our 6th grade friends? It's very similar to the idea of WEB, where we belong. We currently have 8th grade leaders who work with all of our 6th graders. In this regard, our 8th grade PAL friends, who are much more specific and a smaller number, can really work and mentor their younger students in grades 7 and 6. And by the way, it's also great to have that socialization, because when they get to 9th grade, you're going to be in classes with 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. So no difference there. and I'll move quickly through this because it's not all about me presenting, is finally, what if a student is identified as gifted, is also involved in athletics and musical groups? We hope so. In a small district, everyone does everything. So whereas there is no promise that Pirate Block will be, or Gifted Seminar will happen every day, all the time, etc. The goal, one of our landing the plane this summer, is to really focus in on what else can we clean up that has traditionally occurred during a resource time, recognizing that Pirate Block and Gifted Seminar is not resources, not study hall. So what are some additional measures we can put into place? So every attempt we can to minimize that disruption. So for example, throwing some things out there, we'll meet with Dr. Scheibenhofer about assemblies, right? Assemblies should not occur at the same class period every day or every time there's an assembly, because that impacts that class more so than others. So assemblies will not be happening during Pirate Block every time there's an assembly. Now, spoiler alert, there's no auditorium until the end of December or January. So
Really
voila, no assemblies. Ensemble groups, same thing. So we're gonna have a conversation about how has that traditionally looked? What is it looking like now? What are ways? Now, is it inevitable that there will be days in which a student who is in gifted and is in an ensemble won't go to Gifted Seminar? Possibly, but at the same time, they're receiving that academic enrichment, similar but different and more robust in an academic setting in that CKLA block, but then having their individualized projects during the seminar. But even with all that said, our work over the summer is to continue the conversation about what are the things we can do to really consider how we can keep that Pirate Block and Gifted Seminar as pure as possible, because it is designed through MTSS, multi-tiered systems of support, to give all of our students, all 325 students in the middle school, what they need during that period, which is similar to Win at the elementary, but even more robust based off of data. And so what is it we're doing as much as possible to preserve that time where we can, recognizing there will be times in which a student in Gifted Seminar may not go to Gifted Seminar, no different than, any other time when there are places where kids are going and I'm supposed to go here, but now I'm going to go here, and I have this choice and I've got this choice, and it's good at learning about people. What is more beneficial for me today, right? So giving kids those social constructs as well. And then, as I mentioned there, again, I want to reiterate that for me, I don't know, maybe I'm the only one in the room. If that's the case, so be it. But I'm really excited about this idea of giving our students in the PAL program that intentional space where they can work on their passion projects, where they can work on their goals, where they can work on things of interest, that in an environment in which everyone in that room is of a similar ilk, similar mindset, and can support one another and share with one another in a safe space where we often know that sometimes some students in a program like a gifted program may interact differently with one another. They may have a different social acumen than someone of their same grade level. So again, I'm just really excited about some of these modifications. And the last thing I'll say, and I'll turn it over to Dr. O'Connell, is that again, this is a work in progress, right? Next year is the first year of implementation of this new schedule. Like anything with any new implementation, we'll be taking notes. We'll be having conversations with grown-ups. We'll be having meetings with teachers. We'll meet with kids, find out what's working, what's not working. How can we modify things? What are we going to come back to and give reports to EPS about progress-wise? Are there things then that we thought would work but are not working that we need to modify for the next year? But at no point in time will our students be receiving less than. I see this as a really great opportunity to be receiving more than, which anytime we can give more, I think is awesome. So that's my perception. And I'll turn it over to Dr. O'Connell.
I know, I'm not sure what I'm being turned over
I don't know.
to. I'm like,
We want to go to
so
questions?
we're here to answer whatever questions or concerns that you have at this point.
I think that
oh.
probably, my apologies. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you.
Oh, no, I was just saying,
She's saying, please.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that the biggest question, the two things that I've heard the most is just the concern about, the gifted seminar going away and the 6 to 8 kids being together, even though that is definitely a positive, but there is nervousness about
Sure.
that. But the biggest one is the block at the end of the day, making sure that kids, have their gifted seminar, but yet at the same time, a lot of our gifted kids, as true of many of our kids, are involved in all kinds of
Sure.
things. So parents don't want that involvement in those other things to go away, but they also don't want it pulled necessarily the gifted seminar. So I think that's the big challenge. And
Yeah,
Dr.
and-
Scheibenhofer, I know you and I talked about that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just as we shared already, I mean, that is summer work to make sure that we're preserving that time for all kids. Like this is for our gift, because we're talking with, meeting with our parents of the gifted. I used to call myself a gifted teacher because I taught students that were gifted, but then I thought that was a little like, boy, that's a little pretentious. I'm a gifted teacher. I mean, I was okay, but anyway, this block is designed for all of our kids to seek enrichment, whether they're in the Pell program or not, but also get supports. We have work to do at the middle level in math and language arts. So we are committed to protecting that time as much as possible to make sure kids get what they need. You know, our gifted, our teacher, the gifted, I fall into it too, for next year has a full planning block, which we didn't have this year, for what activities are going to be planned for our students of the gifted, but also all of our students that need enrichment opportunities. So we have teachers in their schedules, not just our teacher of the gifted, but in every content area to plan for that course specifically. So I'm really excited about what we're providing for kids that we don't currently provide. And we've got work to do at the middle level. We've been talking about this for quite some time, and I'm excited to see what this opportunity will provide for kids. But we know we can't do things the way we've always done it. We can't always have that, you know, fallback. Now, as far as musical ensembles, that's at our list for the summer. You know, if it's once in a 6-day cycle, if there's something that's set up there, that's a possibility. If it's before or after school, we have late buses, that's a possibility. But to try to shove everything that our wants and desires into a schedule, this is the best that we're doing right now before we've done it. And I'm sure it will look different after we actually live it a little bit, but.
And keeping in mind too, that enrichment opportunity is again also occurring every day during a 60-minute core academic course.
Right.
I know that every year I've come up and have done the building level presentation to the board, as all the principals have. And all the meetings I'm in consortium, like middle level scores aren't the greatest. You know, we always talk about how red can red be. But I really want to commend the board and Dr. O'Connell and Dr. Donnelly for, you know, this year, and I said it in my building presentation in the fall or winter, we have all these new curriculums, we have this new schedule. And I think these are the wholesale changes that we needed to do at the middle level to see those test scores increase. But it's not only about those test scores as well. I know Stephen Morley's here. I know he's been really helpful being on the exploratory team, coming up with different schedules to figure out how this all works, because we want to really preface that well-rounded student as they come through, because that's what colleges are looking for as well. So big task. We always want kids to try everything at the middle level. Try it out, see if you love to do it and so forth. And then because it's, and we tell the kids a lot at the middle level, and it's different when you get to the high school. So try it out now. There's you have the freedom to do that. And it's not, for example, I always use an example. So at the high school, you can play sports. It's about winning when you get to the high school. At the middle level, it's about learning how to play, what fundamentals are. And if you've never done a musical before, want to pick up an instrument, like, this is the time we want you guys to do it, because it's low risk. You know, if you don't like it, you don't like it. You kind of figure these things out before you get to the high school.
Do you have an idea of, I'll say particularly the students that are in the PAL program, what extracurriculars they are involved in, what sports, what music ensembles. So that might give you a little bit more information about when you go to try to schedule or do this or finish the schedule off, so that period isn't being interrupted. You know, what are
So in other words, if
what are your
most of them
least,
are in music.
yeah,
or-
well,
yeah,
then
okay,
you have
got it.
a different,
Get what you're saying.
you know, then if most are in music, well, then you know that the music has to be scheduled in a different way. Or is there a way to postpone, you know, just to leave for a sport 15 minutes later, or, you know, I don't know the, you know, those schedules or.
And if I can add to that, I think it's a really good point. Not all of the extracurriculars occur via the school. So I think that's important and critical to understand. So for example, my son dances 5 competitive teams. So you have to consider, you know, they're asking us when we sign up what's the earliest you can get here after school to coordinate their program. So I would just say, like, keep in mind too, if there is after school time, that's a place to ensure it. So, keep in mind too, when you're talking about those extracurriculars or whatnot, that not all of them necessarily are within that, we'll need some prep time and adjustment as well in some areas. Just a flag for that.
And
So
it's,
we move to after school activities.
It is a band and orchestra stuff. So band and orchestra currently happen during the school day. Correct? And
separately.
Doing resource.
and right now, we're saying we don't know when it's gonna happen.
It's for eighth, well, Dr. Sharper talked about 6th and 7th grade. For 8th grade, you select band, chorus, or orchestra, one of the three.
One of the three.
And then that runs all year, every other day.
What happens during all three?
But in 8th grade, I don't believe you don't have all three in 8th grade.
We have had this.
Yeah,
You can't be in more than one.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, that's a change.
Which is a big,
Oh,
yeah,
grade they choose.
very
What
sad
if-
thing.
What about for like 6th and 7th? How's that work?
This is, yeah.
No, I'll just say, and Director Lori's here too, he can chime in, but they work very well together to try to make that happen. They're very creative. They meet and they've done it for the last X amount of years. Like they have a student that's in multiple ones that wants to be in band, orchestra, and fourth. Like they'll work through that schedule together and make sure that they get.
But that's gonna be separate from the after. So.
Yeah. I think it's important we hear from the parents, but a couple quick things. Number one, just knowing my kids, and I'm sorry that I keep bringing them up, but it's my point of reference, but at least one of my kids would have thought of that as a penalty, like music was more important than the gifted class for her, for sure. And her independent project was the guitar, music was her anchor and arguably her giftedness in a weird way. So I think that's part of the summer planning. It absolutely has to be, because I know at least one kid who's dropped out of the gifted program because of a totally different situation, but we don't want that conflict to make them feel a certain way about having the gifted seminar. That they're, able to sort of enact all those things. That's number one. Number two, quickly, happy to discuss with anybody, but my child was in a 6-8. There was no 7 was separate, but was an 8th grader in a 6-8 mix. And it did work out well. So I'm less personally concerned with that. For me, it's the differentiation in the CKLA class. That's my most moment of pause. Especially when we get to the older grades. A lot of these kids are reading at a 12th grade level in 6th, 7th, 8th grade. And the content, the maturity of some of those books can be challenging to work into a classroom of everybody. So that's the piece, I think it's solvable, but that's the piece that gives me concern.
And Sylvia, I'll add too, we had some growing pains in the last 2 years, and it's not just gifted students, it's all students in general, particularly 7th and 8th grade students that played sports, especially when concerts came up and so forth. The music department and the coaches have done a great job of finding that balance, because everybody wants a piece of that child, and we really try to avoid putting that child in that situation. You know what I mean? We don't want to do that. We want to avoid that. But I'm happy to say this past year has been the smoothest it's been in a long time, as far as, kids getting to their band practice and then being out at the field at X amount of time in their uniform ready to go. So the coaches and the directors have worked really well this past year together. So I was happy to, even with the musical and so forth in the winter, there was no major issue.
Well, and I will say that, again, the CKLA curriculum is going to raise the bar somewhat. I mean, kids will, read, novels, some of the Mariposas, they're going to do, Holocaust stuff. They're going to do Romeo and Juliet in 8th grade. So it is going to raise, the level of text, but there still is that need.
And the CKLA program, within the program and directions for the teachers, includes, for your students who are requiring enrichment, consider these options for what you can do during this class period. So there's additional guidance, because again, all of our classroom teachers should also be including enrichment for all students, but our PAL students in particular, within the confines of each of their subject areas. And the program itself does include directions and supports.
And
Again, students will still have opportunities to participate in Math 24, Math Olympiads. Like there's for social studies, the Trek trip. Like there's all these different avenues that gifted kids usually participate in as well.
The
Parents,
issues that you mentioned right now are age old. This was going on back in the 70s and 80s, and you're going back to what we used to have, where we had 7th through 12th together.
Mm.
7th and 8th graders, you were on one side of the building, but when you had the gifted students interacting with seniors or sophomores or juniors with some of the higher level science class and stuff, it was all good stuff that happened. And then as we do an independent study, but I know the adults, my generation, and those people that were in those programs and what they took out of it. We had someone that was in the music program. He was a Philharmonic conductor in Chicago, New Orleans, and more specifically Cincinnati. And composed music. He was composing music when he was here in the school, and the band played it. So what you're doing right now with the students really does affect them throughout. And those that are notable in 7th, 8th, 9th, 12th grade, you will see things that are unimaginable 20 and 30 years later. Remind yourself of that when you're thinking through all this.
One of my, what I call secret boyfriends, is a notable researcher in education, Robert Marzano. He talks about, Linda and I talk about this all the time, competency-based education rather than grade level.
Right.
Here's the competency one. It doesn't matter how old you are. Let's put the kids together who need to for that competency. So that's kind of what we're talking about. Go ahead.
So during,
Just tell us the name and township.
Jennifer Whelan and Springfield.
But thank you.
So one of the main things that I think, aside from it being a gifted seminar, is there's a lot of things that my son, he's a 7th grader going into 8th. He learned this year that he really enjoys tutoring. He was going to 6th grade during resource and tutoring kids. And are they still going to have those kinds of opportunities, or like that would pull from gifted seminar at this point because it's not resource anymore? You know, resource was such a wonderful period, and it's just kind of, I'm just trying to understand why, you know, why that's kind of disappearing, and are they still going to have the same opportunities to have those things that they did during resource?
I'll chime in. Great question. I'm glad you brought that up. That's something that we need to figure out. That's something we don't want to go away because it was so beneficial. But we do have other options as well. Like, you know, mentoring is a time we look at as well. Like maybe that's something they can do in mentoring. But I know Mrs. Prego kind of leads that up, and she's very passionate about that. So we'll find a way.
And I would say to that point as well, would say to that point that, again, we have 6 days in the cycle. So if that's a passion of your son and he enjoys working with younger students or students who need supports grade level or the grade levels below in a particular subject area, then maybe it turns out that during one of those days of the cycle, or once every other, whatever that looks like, he is able to go and has a classroom where he's sitting with 7 of those kids that have been identified that have a need to learn more about X topic, whether it's English, language arts,
I think
science.
that kind of builds on what somebody already said earlier, where, you know, he also is in band, and he's also in jazz band. Like, so you start pulling at this point right now. I think he was actually in his resource homeroom like one day a week. He was never there because he just had other things he did during that period, and they were kind of his favorite parts of his day. And I just would hate to see that disappear, or kind of make him, like you said, like not want to be a gifted, almost like a punishment that he's in this class.
I will quickly, again, I'm sorry to keep mentioning my kids, but Nico had built that. He actually had that goal, I think at the high school, and I don't think so much at the middle school. He had that as one of the goals in his GIEP for like a history class or something. So we were able to build it into other pieces of the curriculum where he would read the content a little bit more quickly. But in math and history, he'd walk the classroom, but it was part, you know, the teacher would build it in, and he loved it. And the kids he helped, I really liked it too. I think Nico did some more work than he was supposed to do. But, I would encourage you to have those conversations directly in the GIEP, because I think teachers would be able to work that in. I know they do with the high school, and I would imagine in a science or social studies setting that could be done too.
Like you like slower.
Okay, if you finish this point.
It seems to me those opportunities could also change year to year depending on what the underclassmen are. For example, I have a fifth grade, or I have an incoming sixth grader who's gonna be in an eighth grade math class, and, you know, and we're working on like, advocating, right? So he needs to be able to speak up more when because he's clearly not gonna have every single thing from pre-algebra, you know, he might miss concepts. So like, he could benefit from a student mentor who is older, says, oh, I need this concept, I don't understand why, how we got from A to, you know, M, and then they fill in block. So I would imagine that might be individualized too, depending on what the kids are in the class.
What, and Carl, you might not know the answer to this at this point, because like you said, you're doing a lot of planning over the summer. So what do you see as like the communication plan? Then after you figure some of this out, like, do you think in your newsletter things will go out, or what, like parent night, or what do you see?
Well, most immediately, or this FAQ will go out on Friday to all the parents. Then we'll have our heavy lift this summer, doing the scheduling, getting the schedule patterned down. And then I would say in the fall, back to school night, it'll be spoken to and be in the newsletter and so forth.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would encourage that the parents, really all parents, as they work through this schedule, because I think you need all the feedback you can get, but giving these parents access to the teacher and understanding like, okay, it's not working in week 3, we need to talk to the teacher, you know, having that flexibility, which I know, and I haven't said, and I think we should, this has come a long way, so thank you for that. This has clearly been evolved by our opinions, which have been quite strong. Really? Not always perfect. But this has come a long way, you know, there's still moments of concern, but I'm sure you still have to stay awake at night with some of this. So I think it's come a long way. And that gives me hope that in September, when things kind of pan out and you figure, you know, my kid could really use X and Y, that they can come to you and to the teacher and figure that out.
Okay. Other questions? Laura, go ahead.
Yes, I have a 7th grader going to 8th grade, and I just had an IEP meeting, feels like weeks ago, but I think it might be yesterday, with Dr. Scheibenhofer and Mrs. Kesselman and Mr. Otero. And it was extremely helpful. They're very patient, answering my questions. It was very informative, and I know that they're like doing their absolute best and have the interest of students in mind. And I think, echoing what Sylvia said, I think Joey would be one that he would feel like it's maybe a punishment if he wasn't able to do his band just work his dresses and not honors, all of these things. Yeah, and he would rather than, if that's the ultimatum, not have it. That's what we're calling the pirate block because it's seminar. I also have an incoming 6th grader. And so hearing some of this makes me, and I just realized this a couple of days ago, he does have a reading goal. And we, you know, keep saying that they'll get they're gifted in the CKLA, but from what I saw, the gifted teacher is not teaching the 6th grade class. And the gifted education is not simply that enrichment piece, but it's like he also deserves the gifted instruction in his core ELA class. And the pirate block is valuable in supporting them, but it should be supplemental and not replacing that gifted instruction. Talking to Mrs. Kesselman yeah, my timing is weeks or months ago before she decided to make the move to 5th grade. She said that the plan was that she would be teaching 6th, 7th, and 8th grade ELA, the class where there is a gifted student or students that have that reading goal, and she would be teaching that class. So, and that seems educationally sound to me. It, I guess, was feasible. So the new gifted teacher that we've hired, I would like to see that person teach the 3 grades. They would also have the 20 GIEPs and managing those. They would also be leading a pirate block. And that seems like an appropriate workload. So just as the 7th grade and my 8th graders, 8th grade, they benefit from that direct gifted in ELA where that reading is being included. It's not just grammar, it's that reading piece that we're talking about where they are 12th grade levels and we can replace text, we can do more. They benefit. The 6th grade need is just as significant. And I think that they're their academic needs are no less significant, and they should also have that gifted teacher instruction. So that, I guess, with it, I don't know how big of an ask that is, but I think it's an effective use of a gifted teacher's expertise. I think that it creates an equitable service through middle school across all 3 grades, and most importantly, it meets the needs of grade 7 and 8th grade students.
What's the, I'm curious, I want to make sure I heard something because it does relate to this, is all teachers are getting this planning block. Did I hear that correctly? Like that's a new thing, or no, is it already against it?
It's hands like 5 or 6.
Okay,
selected people.
okay, okay. And was there a scheduling reason? Like why isn't because I don't know, why isn't the new hire going into 6th grade CKI?
So I'll pay our plan for that. We're gonna take all our gifted 6th graders and put them in one ELA 6th class. The teacher that I spoke with today did teach honors prior to my arrival at the middle school. We had it there. Very excited, and we'll be working closely with the new gifted teacher as well to make sure that she's differentiating and challenging these kids.
And to Laura's point, I made a note to go back and look at that. There at no point in time during scheduling conversations was the teacher of the gifted going to be teaching 3 different grade levels. So I'm not sure from whence that information came to that teacher that spoke with you, because the idea was when also now adopting and implementing a brand new program, the idea of like now having a singleton teacher having 3 unique preps plus managing GIPs, we were trying to say, all right, we talk all the time about stress and having too much workload and all the sorts of things. So then the conversation was to have that teacher teaching 2 grade levels and then having the 1 grade level cohort together with a very strong teacher who then would work closely with the teacher of the gifted. So that has always been the conversation, but I did make a note to go back and look. So those are conversations we can have over the summer to see if there are any ways to manipulate anything. Again, no promises, but I do appreciate the request. Yeah.
Having a cohort together is important. So there's 20 gifted kids in 6th grade?
No, 16 to 20 total.
Total, 6,
I
7,
was
8.
gonna
Yeah,
say,
yeah,
you
yeah.
said that here.
I think you said there's 6. Is there 6?
Maybe 6
Yeah.
or 7.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Robin Mahoney, Springfield Township. I just wanted to echo what everybody else has already said here. My daughter is in this program. She has a very strong reading goal. She probably reads it about 10 or 11 right now. So some of the content that's been taught on regular grade level classes is definitely a little bit below what she is. So I'm enriching her privately at home just because of, what's in the library and elementary so far has not been what she really. With that being said, I think that I did what Mr. Shedner mentioned a little bit of getting all of these kids together. This English teacher is great. If that's an option or an advanced PLA teacher or teacher, at least to work with the gifted teacher to give them more just to be the general 6th grade class. If there's an option for that, just so that they're getting that kind of enrichment on it, not just go in a tiny group and work on this, one grade novel. Just more engagement, I think, as opposed to what they begin. Right, and I also agree with the concerns of the resource for marathon, the opportunity to expand an ensemble, and my daughter had to choose as well.
That doesn't change when they get older.
The passion for music is thick with you.
Go ahead.
Real quick question, with the gifted seminar, the way it's been done, have the kids ever pulled out of that for any reason? No, like, it was kind of like a guaranteed thing that happened.
It
From-
period 4, like it's
Yeah, like, I don't know about the other parents, like, when I was picking my son up from, elementary school, like, the past year or 2, I many times heard, like, how was your day? And he was a bummer, or they canceled PAL. That was something that happened multiple times, way more frequently as we went on. We keep getting into this thing that this is going to be an improvement, we're gonna get more time, we're gonna get more exposure, yet twice during that presentation it was dropped. I can't promise you they're gonna be there every time. And then we're talking about, we don't know when music's gonna happen, or certain things are gonna happen during the club. These clubs, there seems to be a lot of uncertainty. And I think from our experience, my experience, and my wife's experience, I'm sure she'd share that with you.
She has.
She
has,
I'm sure. We keep getting told that this is gonna happen a certain way. There's this ambiguity that we're just kind of like, okay, let's hope this works out. And then it just seems like it just keeps kind of getting pulled away. It's like a bait and switch. Like, we're gonna get this, but then this happens. And we just keep whittling down this thing. And I want to believe that this is a great opportunity. I want to feel like, oh, this is awesome. But like, the skeptic in me is kind of like, this seems like it's kind of a slippery slope that we just keep pulling away from these kids. And having that guaranteed, this is going to happen every day. This is what they get. Opportunity that we were so excited to come to middle school this year. After what we've had kind of the past year or two, to have like this guaranteed, he's going to have this block with his peers to thrive. Now we're just worried at the end of the day, is he going to miss this? 2 out of 6, 3 out of 6. We don't know, and that's the big question mark that we're worried about.
I would, it's interesting, right, to hear all the different perspectives, because I really do think the important part, the word is individualized, right? Like that's the word, right? And, you have a kid who is gifted and maybe enjoy commensurate piece, right? Or wants to tutor and do different things. For me, and my kiddo who's the program, I need a certain level of maturity to happen in frontal lobe development before we can get to all of some of these things, right? So I'm experiencing a situation where, they're very advanced in reading and math and all these great things. And then I ask them to, pack a bag, and it's like,
That doesn't go away either. Who's gonna make the boy joke right now? Yeah, all right.
But with the adaptation, I feel like for the maturity of what's coming, right, and to be adapting to that, I think a certain amount of balance. Like, there are going to be certain kids who work very strictly in a very, I have this dedicated time and love that. I have an ADHD gifted kiddo who's like, nope, just change it up. Let's do it different. I know where I need to be, but now I'm into this, so I think it's hard, particularly in a small district, to really figure all of that out for such a small cohort. And I just have to say, like, between the music teachers who I know are grasping onto every student that they can to keep going, everything, I have the benefit of being new to this, whereas some of the other folks have been in it for so long that I look and say, okay, I have to be flexible. I have to do what's right for my kid and advocate for that to a certain extent. And that's not going to change. We're always going to have to do that as a parent. I have the benefit of it, like I said, like, oh, this is great, new, and it happens to fit my kid, right? Looking at this, I give you guys a lot of credit for the efforts you do put in to try to individualize all of this, and I'm sort of excited that we'll have a cohort of kiddos who all know one another and go through this together.
Like we have to look at it. We don't look at it as taking, we look at it as giving, because it's all about the balance. And that's the word that gets dropped more than any other when we take a look at this. And that's what we want for our kids. So that's what we're going to be working on this summer. So it's fun.
So this year, this coming school year, and this is, I think, the last item on our agenda, we're going to have an EPS meeting in August this year. Is there any value in coming back with this topic in August, just to kind of hear where things landed? I don't know. And I don't know if that's too early. It's like the second week. I don't know. And we could debate that, I guess, or.
At that point, the schedule should be settled and each student should have their individual schedule at that point. So that's, you use Dr. Donnelly's analogy, that's when our plane is.
I did just want to comment, if I'm hearing correctly, which I'm not familiar with all of the ins and outs of how this gifting thing works in school. It sounds to me like the idea of teachers being overstressed and whatever, it would be much more challenging to have such a wide range of abilities within a class than if you narrow that and put those kids that are gifted together they've got much less variation that they've got to give to the curriculum that they're teaching. So again, that goes back to if we stick to a more merit-based placement, it's easier on the individual that's bringing in.
So they are doing that though per grade level. So like all the sixth grade or all,
Yeah,
is that
I'm
what you
talking-
mean? You're
no,
talking
I'm
6 to
talking
8.
6 through 8.
Oh,
I'm talking six, if we're talking 16 to 20 kids,
right.
6 through 8, why can't they have that CKLA instruction or whatever it is that you
Right.
are
That's
all
the
talking
curriculum,
about?
right.
So that's just my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about 3 grade levels of standards there, which is, yeah.
So is the goal
Not
of that
necessarily.
gifted seminar
Not
classes,
right.
like to work on their individual, like, cause usually they all have an individual goal. So is that the goal of that gifted seminar, for them to work on their individual goal?
Yes.
And then the rest of it just be spread throughout the day?
Correct.
Okay, so if they have an independent research project, that's the goal?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
And it used to be focused just on National History Day.
it was.
That's what everyone did.
Or,
They did a
yeah,
lot of
they
it. I
did
mean,
do a lot.
National History was definitely, but they did
Lately.
like a Shark Tank, like do an invention and they had to present to judges. They had to pick a.
They
did
teach each other
problem
something.
And then make a presentation. Joey did his on contamination of stream water
Cool.
Yeah.
from agricultural and lawn care.
Yeah.
So there were, I
There's
used
a
to say
lot.
that it was National History because there was so much, and those were the only 3 of the ones that I know, like.
Yeah.
It wasn't-
They spent a
I
couple
don't
weeks,
know.
they taught each
Yeah,
other
yeah.
something that they knew
Oh,
well.
okay.
They had to go up and teach how they, you know, if somebody's good at origami, they go up and teach from basics to the end, how they have to teach it. So
Mhm.
there's a lot that goes into that gifted seminar class, more than just National History Day.
And I think just maybe to end with it, since we are well over time, we've.
Yes,
we are.
But important and good
Yes.
conversations though, right? And we appreciate that. And again, change is, you know, sparing lots of comments. Change is not always easy for many people or some people right? And we all need to work through that and navigate. And we recognize that, you know, a particular cohort, some of our elementary friends who are going into middle school now have realized a couple different changes over the past few years. So we recognize and appreciate that. You know, the idea of gifted seminar is that whereas previously, and again, right, wrong, and different, but how we had it modeled was that in lieu of a reading class, students were in a reading class and we're still doing reading, but then also we're adding in these other projects, natural history, but also lots of other things too, right? So it wasn't even then a true reading class, even though it was a
Right.
reading. But now what our hope is, and as we continue to formulate this, is that the gifted seminar during Pirate Block. So in addition to, and I know that what I'm about to say might be a little controversial for some folks, but again, receiving the enrichment and having opportunities to grow together as a cohort within an academic setting with measured approaches is important and is going to be delivered to the students, which has not been our delivery model yet and before. So it's in addition to that we are planning to give, like, we want these kids to be excited about being gifted, about their passions and about their areas, not only of giftedness, but also precociousness. And what can we do during that time, right? To then give them that opportunity to learn, to grow, and be like 20 kids running all over the place, whatever it is, but then coming back and saying, okay, for the next week and a half, whatever the days that you're here, you're going to be working on these projects, and in 2 weeks we have a rubric, and here's what the presentation is going to look like, and here's what we're going to do. So your son's going to talk about the impact of tutoring on and using this tool to do so, and you know, Sammy's going to talk about the use of, you know, different musical tones that develop into the musicality that allow for him to learn certain moves when he's in jazz, you know, jazz or ballet or whatever, right? So it's really about hopefully moving and giving these kids a passion in middle school when, you know, sometimes that passion gets lost, and give them that freedom more so than the construction or the construct. Well, you're in gifted seminar, so this is what we're doing. We really want to open it up a little bit and develop that I part of the GIEP, and that's really the premise from which we're coming.
I think that sounds great. Like, that's
Yeah,
sounds awesome.
I
But
do.
the big question we have is what else is going to be doing on that time? You
The
know,
devil's
that's
in
gonna
the
cause
details.
Yeah.
the kids to miss that
Sure.
experience as well.
Sure.
Well, I know that Dr. Scheibenhofer and team will continue to work and move toward, you know, answering these questions and meeting these students' needs. I think, you know, everybody here is about doing what is the very, very best for our students. We'll continue to talk about, you know, what we can do here to continue information and the feedback going, and parents, please keep the communication coming. Really appreciate you attending tonight.
We just have a couple of.
But we're not done.
We're not.
Wait, there's.
Never. That's right.
This will be, not to diminish, what it is, but this will be pretty, quick and routine, which is why it's informational, not a presentation. It's informational just to share. So Act 48, which is our professional learning committee, which is required by the Pennsylvania Department of Education, meets once a year towards the end of the year. So, and that team and Joanne Allen and others, Mrs. Barbero are on that team with me. So we have stakeholders that are educators, parents, community, etc. We go through, we develop a calendar based off of the board approved calendar. So it differentiates what type of professional learning will take place, whether it's a building-based activity that the building leaders design, is a district-based activity, which I and others will work together collectively to design, or department time, right? Which is when, say, our middle school English teachers will work together on training for CKLA. There'll be more of that then, but just want to share with you that this is what this looks like. As the year goes on, we'll be able to speak more specifically about what occurred, what the takeaways were, etc. So we'll include that into our regular
Talked
regimen,
about, we can do that, right?
during next year's EPS. Cell phone policy feedback. Dr. Scheibenhofer and Mr. Heffernan and Dr. Spearing, I met with each of them, and long story short, it worked really well this year. There really weren't many complaints. Students were very compliant, and there aren't really many recommendations, and it's kind of a moot point, possibly, question mark. The Pennsylvania legislature is moving forward with, and
So
Governor
we'll hope for
Shapiro.
that.
Yeah. So,
I have
But-
stuff to add. If you're gonna keep going. So I received a letter about a week ago from the Bucks County Commissioners, and they passed a resolution that they would award $2,000 to districts that passed a cell phone policy that prohibits cell phone use during instructional time. Well, lo and behold, I was able to forward a policy to, I was working with Diane Marseglia. She gave feedback, asked a little bit about study hall. I shared the conversations that we had about study hall at the high school level, explained 90 minutes, explained that it's cell phone free for the first half. Kids can be on their cell phone, so the whole thing. So ultimately, she did say our policy falls a bit short, but of what the state is soon to be requiring, but she accepts our policy as written. I also shared with her that there's no way that we would be able to pass a policy this late in the year before the next school year, because we don't meet as a policy committee, nor will we be meeting as a board. So the $2,000, I asked if it could be sent after July 1st, so it could be used for professional development going into next year. So I'm excited about that. And she also asked that I would share with her, we don't know what the professional development will be at this point. But what the funds went toward, $2,000 is a nice amount to be able to provide some professional development, but also share that there is a Bucks Unplugged group that has a website. I went to it. It has still some holes in their website, but if you go to Bucks Unplugged, one of their major focus areas is not giving kids cell phones until 8th grade. So holding off until 8th grade. So check it out. They're sort of doing a campaign to see how many, parents would sign on to do that. So I just wanted to make everyone aware that they'll be looking for what our professional development opportunities will be, as well as just to share Bucks Unplugged, and they're
That's
continuing to develop their website. There's some holes that are under construction, but good resources.
Well, maybe some of that can go toward the professional kind of development that we talk about for parents with the digital
It is
literacy
very-
and the, yep,
It can go
absolutely,
toward,
great.
absolutely.
Yep, great.
You said that, the cell phone policy, that the feedback that you had gotten said that it went very well. Did you get feedback from students?
No.
No.
She's a good You'll know if they're, yeah.
Compliant, and they're just like, if
They
the
got
student
used
needed
to it.
to use the cell phone, like they would come up to us at lunch and say, hey, can I go to the main office, student office? I need to call my mom or dad to put more money on my lunch account. And so, they would sign out, Smart Pass, go down and use it. And they were great.
It just took a little bit, I mean, I'm gonna say anecdotally, in my office here at the high school, I would see in the beginning of the year, maybe a handful more of kids who would have violated a few times and thus have repercussions and consequences. But as the year went on,
it was just like, this is just what we do. Here's how we operate.
Okay.
They complain at my house regularly and I didn't hear any complaints post like November, so.
Okay.
It's fine.
Like a lot of things.
Yeah.
So any questions on
That's great.
anything else with cell phone? Title III, I covered this a little bit during our board meeting last week. Since that time, and for those who may not be aware, Title III is a federally funded program. It supports students that are English language learners. And on the page there, you can see what defines an English language learner. For Title III specifically, you need to receive more than $10,000 in grant funding to be able to receive those funds. We have 7 students that are active ELL, actively receiving ELL supports right now. So we fall below a threshold in which we would come close, anywhere close to receiving that level of funding. If you fall below $10,000 in funding, you do get a little bit. So we're allocated $1,500, but that has to go toward a consortium that would provide professional development to support not just our EL teacher, but all teachers in how to support students that are English language learners. So we've been scrambling to engage with a consortium. The Bucks IU does not have a consortium, but I talked with Mark Hoffman today and he connected me with Carbon Lehigh Intermediate Unit that does have a consortium. They have MOUs already set up. So we're going to partner with Carbon Lehigh Intermediate Unit. It's closer. There's some others, but not quite as close. So if I am able to pull this off in the next 2 days, I'm hopeful, then you will see it as exact. Well, I'm hoping not to. I just want to have the MOU and the relationship. Then you'll see it on the board agenda for next Wednesday. And then we can write our grant with that MOU and then receive, receive that funding. So
Yeah, I guess my question is, and I know I was the one who brought this up,
Yep.
are there a ton of rules that go with it?
of course.
Is it worth it?
Why don't we give it a go for a year and
Okay.
then see?
Okay,
Because we're
because
sort of
again, like I said,
far
I'm not the
down
biggest
this
fan of the federal funding, but I
path.
thought maybe there'd be more, but I thought maybe we had more students. So Bucks County doesn't have one. That's so interesting.
Well, because there are so few of us that fall into
that category.
You know,
Yeah.
many other districts exceed 10,000 by quite a bit and are able to use those funds specifically for whatever that
Okay.
grant says. So let's give it a go for
Okay.
26, 27, and then we'll
See.
regroup and see if we want to do it again.
Okay.
Great.
And the last item is just our EPS dates for next year, so I won't bore you with those, other than our next meeting is on August 12th, 6:30 here in the high school.
Okay. All right. Any final questions?
So long,
Farewell. There we go. 8:57. We are adjourned. Thank you.